Chapter 1428. Chinemo narrowed his eyes. He was as cold as a prince. When are you guys meeting? The day after tomorrow. Bojio told her little princess everything she knew. Chinemo seemed to see the desire in her eyes to go out to eat hamburgers. After helping her roll up her sleeves, he said casually, "Your cold should be gone the day after tomorrow. You can go out to eat." When Bojio heard this, she was even happier. Her tiger eyes lit up. "Momo, do you want to go with me?" Her father had said that if she wanted to raise him, she had to show some sincerity and use feelings to communicate. Bojio thought about it, and felt that other than sleeping, going out to eat meat was the best way to increase his affection. She didn't know that Chinemo was waiting for her to say this. He smiled. "Okay." He agreed. Bojio blinked. She didn't dare to believe it. After all, Momo had rejected her last night. He had wanted to throw her out of the window. Why was he different today? As expected, her father's words were true. A good night's sleep can increase feelings. Bojio was happy for a while. When she came back to her senses, she realized that little Princess Chin was wiping her hands. She seemed to have become cleaner after being by his side. This was probably what her father had taught her before. You get stained by the company you keep. When she was young, Bojio had a strong comprehension ability. That was why Chinemo would always have a headache trying to correct her understanding of Chinese characters. The young golden-haired butler was already prepared to send Miss Jo back to the other side as soon as he arrived. After all, he had overheard his young master using a restrained voice to say, "Little Bojio." He didn't expect that. Not only did his young master not allow him to send her back. After breakfast was served, he naturally peeled an egg for Miss Jo, who was sitting opposite him. The most difficult thing to accept was, he even blew on the bowl of porridge beside his hand and pushed it to the opposite side. Wait a minute. The butler started to recall the energetic Chinese culture he had learned about on the internet. The main characters didn't seem like they would do this. His young master didn't seem like he was taking care of someone his age. Instead, he seemed like he was raising a child. No, that wasn't right. He was more meticulous than raising a child. There was a rule in raising a child here. It was to cultivate the child's ability to take care of himself. Things like peeling eggs and blowing on porridge to cool down would never happen here. He didn't know if he had accidentally failed to control his rich expression. Young master, who was eating the soup dumplings, looked up and glanced at him. The golden-haired butler shivered and immediately stood up with the tray, assuming a standard standing posture. Chinemo retracted his gaze and lowered his head to take another bite of the xiaolongbao on the bamboo chopsticks. It had been a long time since Bojio had such a scrumptious breakfast. However, there was something she was ashamed of. She preferred to eat with a spoon and didn't have many chances to use chopsticks. Therefore, when she reached for the soup dumplings with her chopsticks, her movements were a little clumsy. The clip fell off. The clip fell off the second time. For the third time, little Tiger Bo simply poked it with her chopsticks. After she poked it up, she howled and placed it all in her mouth. Chapter 1429. Little Tiger Bo felt so happy that she was about to fly. She wanted to use the chopsticks to poke the second dumpling. However, little Princess Chin stopped her. "Chopsticks aren't used like this." The voice was calm. Then he reached out and held her hand. Then he started to teach her how to hold it. Bojio tilted her head and looked at his posture. She moved the chopsticks in her hand downwards and held them again. Her hands were still a little small. It was still too slow for her to hold things like this. But when she looked at the little princess again, her hand holding the chopsticks was beautiful and accurate. It seemed like it wasn't because of the chopsticks. Bojio grabbed her hair. She was a little annoyed. "I'm too stupid." Although Chinemo kept calling a certain little tiger stupid, it didn't mean that he would let the little tiger he planned to raise feel inferior to others. Moreover, the little tiger was used to living abroad. It was understandable that she couldn't hold the chopsticks well. He had never raised a child before, but he knew that children had pride. With this thought, he raised his head and said to the golden-haired butler, "Try taking the chopsticks." The young golden-haired butler was a little confused when he heard this request. He didn't know what his young master's intention was at all. But as a qualified butler, He had to complete his master's request. Even though he was a foreigner, he had never used something like chopsticks before. But he had read about it many times in novels. He had always admired the Chinese for being able to use two small pieces of wood as cutlery to eat. The experts in the novels could even use one of the chopsticks to kill people. The young butler believed that as long as he learned slowly, he would be able to do it one day. Hence, when Qin Mo said this, the young butler was very willing to try. With great respect, he picked up the pair of serving chopsticks on the dining table and aimed it at the steaming soup dumplings. The first time, it didn't come up. The second time, it slipped. The third time, he recalled what his young master had said when he was teaching Miss Jiao. He didn't use enough strength, and one of the chopsticks actually fell. His face was full of question marks. Was it so difficult? The young butler's expression was so rich that he could make an emoticon. As you can see, some adults don't even know how to use chopsticks. It's normal that you can't use them well. At least you can pick things up. Enrich. Bo Jiao was elated. She shook her little tiger tail and nodded. Seeing this, Qin Mo thought for a moment and brought the soup dumpling he had picked up to the little tiger's mouth. Since it was all his, he naturally had to be responsible for feeding it. Although he wasn't used to it, he would take it slow. Fortunately, this little tiger was smarter than ordinary people. She would definitely be able to learn how to hold chopsticks quickly. The young butler, who had not finished practicing, was speechless. He felt the deep malice of this world, all because of the chopsticks, the utensils that tested the foreigners. But young master, don't you think you're being too nice to Miss Jiao? Are you going to raise Mr. Bo's child? If Chairman N knew about this, he would definitely be shocked. The young blonde butler had a lot to say to his boss. He was in charge of the young master's daily life. Chairman N had said that if there was even the slightest change in the young master, he had to call him to let him know. It was obvious that he was helping someone raise a child. Chapter 1430. Before the golden-haired butler could make the call to inform him, he was called to the study by the young master, who had finished breakfast. Their young master was really like a character in a martial arts novel. How could a child be interested in the four arts from a young age? Their young master was one. The study was separate, and there were also ink, paper, and inkstones that would only be used in ancient China. The golden-haired butler deeply felt that he had made the right decision to come to the N family. Those book friends didn't understand what it felt like to have a real-life expert bring in. Their young master was definitely a legendary expert. However, the golden-haired butler didn't know why his young master was looking for him at this time. The only thing he could think of was that his young master would definitely warn him not to say anything he shouldn't say. Don't ask him why he knew. That was how online novels were written. However, Qin Mo didn't say this. Instead, he asked, "Do you have any experience raising children?" The golden-haired butler. Qin Mo raised his eyebrows. N. The golden-haired butler straightened his posture and temporarily treated it as the young master asking him for advice. In the West, when raising children, we pay special attention to one thing. We have to cultivate the child's independence. After saying that, he observed the young master's expression. He seemed quite satisfied. He continued, "For example, it's better to let the child do it himself." When Qin Mo heard this, he looked up. "May I ask, how old are you this year?" "Young man, I'm 24, the golden-haired butler said in English. After Qin Mo heard this, he put down the notebook in his hand. 24 years old shouldn't be married yet. I've read Western books. It seems like you have no experience in teaching children." So, the golden-haired butler didn't quite understand this sentence. Qin Mo seemed to be specifying some plan and said to himself, "You still have to feed the baby tiger." The golden-haired butler. "Young master, since you have already decided, why are you asking me? What's more, the baby tiger is still young. You are the same age. Also, change my breakfast to milk in the future." When Qin Mo said this, there was no expression on his little face. The golden-haired butler was confused. "Young master, I thought you didn't like milk?" Chairman N had even specifically mentioned this point in the kitchen. The young master had a preference for Chinese food, and did not like milk with its fishy smell and foam. He rarely drank it. Why did they suddenly want to change breakfast? Chin Mo's fingers paused when he heard the butler's question. What else could it be? For 3 centimeters. Young master? The golden-haired butler glanced sideways and asked again. Chin Mo's expression was calm. From today onwards, I like it. The golden-haired butler was speechless. He thought that his young master was really unpredictable. Just at this moment, he suddenly heard a cute little voice with the aura of a tiger. Momo. The young golden-haired butler turned his head, and sure enough, it was Miss Gio. Chin Mo saw the little tiger walking over with hot water in her paws. He raised his eyes and gave the blonde butler a look. The golden-haired butler did this very well. His eyes lit up as soon as he saw it. His comprehension ability was very strong. No, he had a stomach full of things to tell Chairmanin. He had to calm down and summarize. Bojio, who was in the study room, still didn't know what had happened. She wagged her little tail and watched as her little princess drank the hot water she brought over. His heart was filled with boundless satisfaction. Yesterday, Momo didn't drink the food she brought over. Today she didn't resist. This was a good sign. She believed that soon, her little princess would agree to buy herself to her. She was so happy. Chin Mo drank the hot water in the cup, and his throat felt much better. Then he looked at the little tiger wagging her tail in front of him. He completely rejected the young butler's suggestion. The little tiger already knew how to take care of him. She didn't need to cultivate any independence. However, there was one thing that didn't develop according to Chin Mo's plan. After the little tiger watched him drink the medicine, she suggested going home. She wagged her tail and said, Mommy is back. She must be pestered by Dad again. I have to go and act cute. Otherwise, Mommy will be worried. He knew that what the little tiger said was right. But his original plan was to teach her how to write. In this case, he could only stay in the study room. Chin Mo told himself that it wasn't a big deal. In fact, it would be quieter. Bojio saw the little princess agree. Then, she stood beside the study table and picked up the brush on the table. She looked at his face, which was half hidden in the light. He seemed to need someone to hug him. As Bojio thought about this, she couldn't control herself. She used a little more force and hugged him. However, the brush fell and the other end successfully scratched Chin Mo's face. There was a second of awkwardness. Bojio started to realize that she was too rough. She reached out her claws to scratch her ears. Her little princess would definitely call her name again. Unexpectedly, that person just glanced at her. Then, he took out a piece of paper and wiped his dirty face. The more he did this, the more little Tiger Bo felt guilty and flustered. Chin Mo was clear about one thing. Naturally, he had to treat her differently if she was raised by him or not. If he raised her, he had to teach her slowly. Don't rush over like this in the future. Bojio nodded and said, Momo, can you not practice your calligraphy first? Why? After Chin Mo wiped his face clean, he gave off the feeling of a little prince. Bojio held his hand. I want to bring you to meet my parents. You took care of me for the whole night yesterday. I have to tell my dad. This was a historic development. She still had to learn from her dad about what to do next. Chin Mo paused when he heard her words. He thought that she would definitely come often in the future. From an etiquette point of view, he should indeed greet Uncle Bo and the others. If Grandpa were to find out about this, he would definitely laugh at him again. After all, when had his grandson ever taken the initiative to visit anyone? Now he was convinced by the little tiger's words. It was really a miracle. But today, Chin Mo really didn't want to stay in the study alone. In the past, he didn't think that there was anything wrong with this. It was probably because there was a little tiger beside him. Suddenly, without her, the study became very cold and cheerless. After finding a reason to convince himself, young Master Chin tidied up. Young Master Chin packed up and took out his own down jacket with a furry collar. He covered the little tiger with it. At this moment, Bojio didn't feel any pressure wearing Chin Mo's clothes. Instead, it made her little face look even better. The two of them were wearing the same brand of jacket. Young Master Chin had a taste in clothes since he was young. It was probably because of movie Queen Anne's influence. Now the two of them were wearing the same series of down jackets, and stepping on the white snow. No matter how one looked at them, they gave off the feeling that they were carved out of jade. Bojio was very happy because the little princess let her hold his hand and walk away. But there was one bad thing. For some reason, every time the little princess looked at her shoulder, his gaze would change. As for this point, the golden-haired butler, who stood at the door and sent the two children away, must have discovered the secret of why the little young master set the standard for breakfast to be milk. The little young master must be concerned about the problem of height. From the looks of it, the little young master was indeed shorter than Miss Gio. After the golden-haired butler caught this information, he called his boss. After old master heard about this, he smiled so much that there were more wrinkles at the corner of his eyes. Ah! His grandson also had this kind of moment. Was he starting to drink milk because of his height problem? When old master smiled, he rejoiced again that he had brought his grandson here. No, it should be said that being able to meet the little tiger of the Bo family was the most important thing. On the other side, this was the first time little Bojio brought someone home as a guest. Her father hid too many little secrets, and it wasn't convenient for others to see them. As the little tyrant of the area, those people couldn't understand why she liked the little keyboard. To those who didn't understand her, naturally, Bojio wouldn't bring it home. Momo was different. She knew that the little keyboard was very important to her. She even wiped it for her and let her hug it. Anyway, how did little Tiger Bo see her little princess now? Mr. Bo didn't expect that his Lord Gio would bring young Master Chin from across the street to freeload. He had originally set up the image of a man who relied on women. After seeing Chin Mo, he raised his eyebrows lazily. Chin Mo was a smart person. He thought of the adult he saw at home, and the adult who was wearing a headband on his head and dressed like a student. He called out calmly, "Uncle Bo." Mr. Bo smiled. "Good boy." This little devil from the Chin family was really interesting. But no matter how interesting he would probably fall into the hands of his Lord Gio. He knew very well that when his little ninth master wanted something, his passion could melt a person's heart. He could do whatever he wanted. Mr. Bo invited them to sit down elegantly. Mrs. Bo was wearing a business suit and a pair of black high heels. It seemed like she was going out. However, when she saw her daughter, the coldness in her eyes melted. She bent down and carried her daughter up. Was Gio obedient today? Mrs. Bo looked at Mrs. Bo. Yes. Bojio promised obediently. I wasn't naughty at all. Mrs. Bo smiled lightly and pinched her nose. When she saw Chin Mo standing on the other side, a hint of surprise flashed past her eyes. Her Gio would never bring little children home. This was the first one. Moreover, he had Chinese blood in him. Mrs. Bo was a businessman. She had seen many different kinds of people. But no child could be more outstanding than the little boy in front of her. It would remind her of the ancient poem she had learned before she went abroad. A bandit prince standing gracefully. He was young but noble. Where did her Gio get to know such a little friend? Bojio noticed her mother's gaze. She turned her tiger eyes and came out of her arms. She ran to Chin Mo and held his hand. Mom, this is Momo. Yesterday, he took care of me for the whole night, and even fed me medicine. Mrs. Bo knew that her Gio never praised people easily. The father and daughter were always indolent to everyone. They rarely took a liking to anyone. Now the look in her daughter's eyes wasn't as simple as this boy taking care of her. Mrs. Bo wanted to say something, but she saw the boy make a movement. It was a very small movement. He just stretched out his hand to help her Gio pull up her sleeves. Her Gio had been smart since she was young. Her memory was different from other children. Mrs. Bo wasn't at home. Sometimes she wondered if this kind of memory was imperceptibly influenced by others. This was both a good and bad thing for children. If their intelligence was high, they might not be able to make friends during their childhood. She was always worried that no one would take care of her Gio. Now it seemed that she didn't have to worry so much. Among her peers, there were people who could understand her Gio. It seemed that not only did they understand her, they even did the job of a mother. Thank you, little Prince Mo, for taking care of my Gio. Mrs. Bo bent down and touched Chin Mo's head gently. You haven't eaten lunch, right? I'll make something for you and Gio later. Chin Mo didn't say anything. Mr. Bo opened his mouth. Don't you have a meeting to rush to? As expected, you are just coaxing me. Mrs. Bo glanced at him. What she meant was that there was a child around and he, the older child, should wait for a while. Mr. Bo placed his hand behind his back. It seems like I'm going to fall out of favor. It was just 2 sentences. Chinemo knew what kind of situation this family was in. It was completely different from his family. His mother was taken care of by his father. He took care of everything and was very gentle and considerate. It didn't seem like she was in the army at all. But the dignity of the family was still there. And his mother was always controlled by his father. On the other hand, Uncle Bo was very unscrupulous when he lived off a woman. Auntie Bo was basically in charge of coaxing the 2 children. One was the little tiger, and the other was Uncle Bo. Chinemo thought that he might be able to help Auntie Bo. Before the meal started, he naturally brought the little tiger to the side, leaving more space for Uncle Bo to live off a woman. This was also the reason why the latter found this kid more and more pleasing to the eye. Not bad, he was quite smart. Mr. Bo thought about it, and took up more of his wife's time. She used her actions to tell his CEO that she didn't need to care about the 2 children. The one who needed to be cared about was him, the older child. That was indeed the case. Little Tiger Bo's attention wasn't on her mother anymore. Instead, she really wanted to introduce her things to her little princess. This wasn't because of her father. She wanted to be closer to her little princess. When Chinemo followed the little tiger into the room, he realized that this room was different from the other children's rooms. It wasn't because of the decorations. It was because it was impossible to put 3 computers in a child's room. Moreover, every computer was the latest model. Not to mention the computer programming books scattered on the floor. Although they were very simple, Chinmo's English had always been good. Chapter 1431. Momo sit. After saying this, little Tiger Bo glanced at her room. In the past she didn't think much of it. But now when she looked at it again, it was nothing compared to the little princess's room. Hence, the little tiger wagged her tail and explained forcefully, I usually like to clean but I caught a cold yesterday and couldn't clean. The room is messy. Why don't you sit on my lap? After saying this, she patted her leg. Chinemo didn't care about her. He walked over and picked up one of the bag of chips. His face was cold. This shouldn't be from yesterday. Little Tiger Bo, who was exposed, started to change the topic. Momo, let me introduce my pets to you. This is Little Silver number 1. This is Little Silver number 2. They were all computers. Chinemo glanced over. He knew that the child needed to be coaxed, so his praise was rather perfunctory. Not bad names. If the computer had sentience, it would definitely jump out and ask the little prince what was so good about Little Silver number 1 and Little Silver number 2. On the other hand, Little Tiger Bo was delighted that her taste was approved. I haven't completed my mission today. Momo, wait at the side. I'll be done soon. Ever since she was young, Bojio rarely trusted anyone. It was probably like what Madame Bo said. This child took after her father. She might look lazy, but in reality, it was hard to get close to her. But in front of Chinemo, Bojio seemed to be completely open. She didn't know why. It was probably because she met someone who lived a completely different lifestyle from her. Or maybe it was because no matter what she saw, little Princess Chin would be the same as before. Even in such a situation, he would only roll up her sleeves. Bojio felt that meeting the little princess was a blessing she had accumulated in her previous life. Of course, she had to treat her future pet with sincerity. Her dad had said that humans could disguise themselves in different ways. But when she met someone she truly liked, she had to listen to him and give in to him with her heart. Little Bojio felt that she was a domineering CEO. Of course, she had to show this through her actions. She had to spoil the little princess. Now, she had to let the little princess know that she was busy occasionally and couldn't always accompany him. This way, the little princess would be sensible and wouldn't have a psychological gap. When little Tiger Bo thought about this, she felt that she was too smart. She wagged her tail and smiled. Chinemo watched from the side as she bent over to connect the keyboard. Her tiger paws typed slowly on the keyboard. Her white and tender paws were a little small. However, the speed was very fast, and the code that he typed was something that no one could understand. That kind of scene would usually only appear in a comic. After all, the person typing on the keyboard was too young. Before he had met this little tiger, Chin-mo had thought that in terms of intelligence, he was one of the few people his age. Now that he saw the little tiger typing on the keyboard, the word genius naturally appeared in his mind. The little tiger he wanted to raise was a genius. From the looks of it, he had to pay extra attention to his diet and nutrition. Young Master Chin was indeed young Master Chin. Seeing such a thing, the first thing he thought of was how to raise people well. This time she was fast. What a joke. The little princess was still waiting at the side. She had to show off her boyfriend power when she was doing her mission seriously. The little tiger buried her head in her computer program and didn't notice that Chin-mo was looking at her as though she was a pet. He was probably too engrossed in deciphering some things. When the little tiger came back to her senses, she realized that half an hour had passed. Oh no! She had forgotten that the little princess was at the side. Would the little princess feel that she had neglected him? Little Bojio thought about this and sat up with a roll. But when she turned around, her round tiger eyes were wide open. Her room seemed to have become a lot tidier. Then, she looked at Chin-mo, who had placed her code book at the side. In an instant, there was only surprise left on little Bojio's face. She couldn't control herself and pounced on the cold-looking boy. Wasn't that enough? She even rubbed her little tiger face against him. Momo, why are you so virtuous? I'll marry you in the future, okay? Chin-mo wasn't willing to be pounced on like this because the more she did, the more he could feel the difference in height between them. But a certain little tiger didn't know how to restrain herself. And what did she mean by marrying him in the future? Little Bojio, virtuous is used to describe a girl. When Chin-mo said this, his tone was a little gritted. Little Bojio didn't get it at all. She looked up with bright eyes and her tiger ears perked up. But you're so capable. You're virtuous. After she finished speaking, she lowered her eyes and kissed him naturally. I'll give you a kiss as a compliment. Instantly, Chin-mo's fingers froze. Even the words he wanted to say were blocked by the word chirp. The place that was kissed felt hot again and again, coupled with her soft face. It was as if a feather had gently brushed against the bottom of her heart. There was an indescribable itch, and there was also the milky fragrance of candy. It was hard for people not to pay attention to it. Chin-mo pushed the little tiger away and tilted his head. Bojio wasn't sad at all after being pushed away. She patted her little tiger's sleepy head and smiled at the boy whose ears were gradually turning red. This was the bad thing about her little princess. She was too shy. In comparison, she seemed like a little gangster. But she could still understand her little princess's heart. MMH, Bojio replied. My dad gave it to me. If I don't do it well, I will eat his instant noodles. I would rather die than eat his noodles. It could be seen how dark Mr. Bo's cooking skills were. Chin-mo wasn't someone who liked to talk about his elders. But little Tiger Bo was. It wasn't easy for her to find someone to complain to. Little Tiger Bo counted her fingers and started to criticize her dad's various shortcomings. He always plays rock, paper, scissors with me. In order to get more love from my mom, he even says that he cooked the noodles because the noodles he cooked can't be eaten. Last time, he added squid in the noodles. The squid was too disgusting and he didn't cook it well. He said that he should cherish his food and brought a pot out to feed the kitten. In the end, even the kitten didn't want to eat the food he cooked. Yet he likes to show off his cooking skills. Speaking up to this point, the little tiger wagged her tail again. She looked at her little princess seriously and said, Momo, later, if my dad takes something for you to eat and says that he cooked it for my mom, you mustn't eat it. It's poisonous. Okay. Chin-mo agreed casually. In his heart, he was thinking about what the little tiger usually ate if that was the case. However, he was already prepared for this. After all, the memory of her and Uncle Bo going to their house to freeload food was still fresh in his mind. Little Tiger Bo didn't know that her plan to pretend to be obedient that day had been exposed. She used her small hand to poke the screen and told Chin-mo, Momo, you can move the mouse now. Chin-mo didn't have any feelings towards games. But no matter what, he was still a boy. He found it interesting. He pressed the button with his right hand, and the little zombie on the screen jumped forward. The simplicity of the program meant that it was easy to operate. There wasn't any difficulty. At first, he thought that he would just have to jump out of the small wooden coffin and get the blood fruit. To Chinemo, this wasn't a challenge at all. Unexpectedly, when the little zombie he was controlling received the blood fruit, a line of words suddenly appeared on the screen. Congratulations to my little prince Momo for successfully passing the level. I'll give myself to you. Chirp. Then on the screen, the special effect of the stars spread out. Every star had the word Momo written on it. Chinmo's fingers paused. He seemed to be able to see the broken stars reflected in his eyes. He had to admit that the little tiger was very good at making people happy. But the program in the game was written a long time ago. Just now you just changed it to my name, right? When Bojio heard this, her eyes widened. Momo, you're so smart. Chinemo didn't say anything. If this program was written a long time ago, what was the previous name? Bojio didn't realize that the little princess beside her was a very possessive person. She was still asking for praise. Am I very good? Chinemo retracted his gaze and replied faintly, MMH. MMH? That was it. Little Tiger Bo thought that after the little princess played the game, he would agree to be her pet. She had called her father and told him about this. Her father said that this was a strategy. Why didn't this strategy work at all? This was the first time she allowed someone to play the game she made. She didn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. In the past, she had always given herself to her and wrote her name. She had never changed her name to someone else's before. Also, the game she made was quite fun. At the start, she could clearly see the smile on the little princess's face. But that smile didn't last for long before it gradually disappeared. In the end, it became much colder. It seemed like she couldn't listen to her father for some things. Her boss's style was too bold. This wasn't good. It didn't match her reserved image. She had to be self-reliant so that the little princess could accept her as soon as possible. Little Bojio redefined her position. Forgive me for not knowing that her little princess, Chin, only had one thought in his mind. That was the day after tomorrow. He wanted to meet the Mr. William that the little tiger had mentioned. After all, he didn't like this kind of person who enjoyed the benefits he deserved one step ahead of him. In short, this was a perfect misunderstanding. On the other hand, little William, who had just jumped off the school bus, sneezed loudly twice. Then he turned his head and looked behind him. For some reason, he felt a chill at the back of his neck. This must be his illusion. Little William rubbed the tip of his nose. He had golden hair and blue eyes. In addition, he was originally a foreigner, so he always looked a little unrestrained. Tomorrow, he would be able to go out with Gio to eat hamburgers. This time, he must ask his father for some money. If not, he wouldn't have enough to eat. But recently, he heard that a Chinese kid had moved into this area. It was rumored in their school that he was good-looking and looked like a little prince. He wasn't bragging. With him around, who would dare to call themselves a little prince? Chapter 1432. At that time, little William did not realize how naive his thoughts were. He waited until the next day. Little Tiger Bo had always liked to eat hamburgers. In addition, he rarely went out. This time, he was going out with the little princess. No matter how he thought about it, he was excited. She climbed Chinmo's wall before the sun rose. Unfortunately, after being discovered, little Princess Chin didn't talk to her for an hour. Bojio caressed the bridge of her nose, walking 2 rounds beside him. In the end, Chinemo heard someone's stomach rumbling. He frowned. Come over. Bojio was standing by the side of the bed. When she heard the little princess's words, she moved closer. Chinemo helped her take off her hat before asking, Do you know your mistake? Bojio blinked. I know. Looking at that expression, it was impossible for him to know. Chinemo wanted to ask his family to put a few more potted plants outside. He wanted to see how she was going to do those dangerous things with all these things in front of him. Little Tiger Bo was still immersed in the excitement of going out to eat hamburgers. She couldn't understand little Princess Chin's thoughts at all. But then she was glad again. Because little Princess Chin took a piece of cake out of nowhere and put it in her mouth. Delicious. The outside was crispy, but the inside was soft with a hint of sweetness. It wasn't like the snacks she had eaten before. It looked like it was made in China. Ever since she was young, little Tiger Bo had always been interested in local food. She glanced over with her round eyes. She wanted to eat a second one, but she became reserved. Chin Mo could tell what the little tiger was thinking. He smiled and looked at her obedient look. He pinched another piece and placed it in her mouth. His voice was cold. Remember to eat breakfast in the future. Little Tiger Bo nodded perfunctorily. Her attention was focused on the delicacy. Momo, what is this pastry called? Chin Mo paused. It was obvious that he didn't want to say the name. However, little Tiger Bo didn't seem to have any intention of giving up after eating 3. As he wiped his hands, he spat out 3 words. Wife cake. Wife biscuits? What does wife mean? At this moment, her vocabulary was still limited. The main reason was that Mr. Bo never addressed his wife as his wife at home. He always called her Mrs. Bo. Hence, until now little Tiger Bo had never come into contact with this term. However, little Tiger Bo didn't want the little princess she wanted to buy to think that she was uncultured. Therefore, she tried her best to make her face look as calm as possible. In her heart, however, she was thinking that when she returned home, she would have to ask her father what his wife meant. Actually, the reason why Chin Mo didn't want to say it wasn't just because of the name. It was the story behind it. It had to be said that this was also because it was Chin Mo. Other people at his age might not know that there was a story behind the wife cake. This was inseparable from his family's upbringing. Old Master Chin, who had passed away, was the founding general of the country. When he had taught Chin Mo, many things had been imperceptibly influenced. Every object had an allusion to it. This was not something that every general could do. But for the 1,000-year inheritance of a great country, Old Master Chin valued him very much. Over time, Chin Mo had read countless books. When Old Master Chin was still alive, every time he saw little Chin Mo sitting at the desk reading, he would let him go out to play. At that time, Chin Mo was still wearing camouflage clothes, which was different from what he was wearing here. He gave people the feeling of a little man. He only told Old Master Chin that after training he liked to read books. Many people were lamenting that the Chin family had such a child, which was simply used as a benchmark. That was indeed the case. There was one thing that the young butler was right about. Their young master had the temperament of a young master from an ancient aristocratic family, just like a royal family. Indeed, that was right. In the modern world, there were many outstanding children. But the cultivation of an aura definitely didn't rely solely on the accumulation of money, especially this kind of ancient nobility. It depended on one's character, upbringing, and everything that one had absorbed. Chin Mo was such an existence. He watched as the little tiger beside him ate the wife cake. A string of illusion appeared in his mind. Fortunately, the little tiger didn't know the meaning of a boy giving a girl a wife cake to eat. Otherwise, who knew what else she would do, even if she raised her as her own. But the indifferent young Master Chin still wasn't used to being kissed like this. After all, he only wanted to raise the little tiger, not marry her. Bojio didn't know what the little princess was thinking. The wife cake was too delicious and the black tea that the little princess fed her. Accidentally, she ate 6 pieces. When she wanted to eat more, Chin Mo frowned. Chin Mo frowned and took the tray to the side. Eating too much sweets wasn't good for her teeth. This idiot really didn't know anything. Chin Mo now understood the helplessness of raising a child. There was nothing left to eat. Little Tiger Bo patted her clothes and stood up. Today Bojio didn't wear her pajamas. Instead, she wore a pure white sweater and the black down jacket that Chin Mo had given her yesterday. It matched Chin Mo's current attire. Chin Mo was very satisfied with this. After they went out, he was worried that the little tiger would feel cold. He took off the scarf around his neck and wanted to wrap it around the little tiger. It was also at this moment. The awkward moment came. He was shorter than her. Although he didn't need to stand on his tiptoes this time, young Master Chin still raised his eyebrows. His expression didn't change, but his tone was very calm. Don't drink milk for breakfast in the future. After Bojio's little face was wrapped by the scarf, her round tiger eyes seemed even brighter. It was very attractive, but she didn't understand why the little princess didn't allow her to drink milk. Chin Emo saw the confusion on her little face. He said calmly, "From tomorrow onwards, I will ask the butler to send you porridge in the morning. There will also be soup dumplings made at home. Don't you like to eat these?" Compared to milk, of course, soup dumplings were better. Bojo really didn't expect her little princess to be so considerate. She stretched out her hand instinctively and hugged the boy's waist in front of her. "Momo, you are so good to me." Chin Mo's face heated up. He didn't know if it was because he had a selfish motive for sending this breakfast or because she hugged him again. The scene of two children hugging each other was still very eye-catching. Grandpa happened to go out late today. When he saw that his grandson was being hugged, but he didn't push the other party away, the surprise in his eyes became even more obvious. He knew that his grandson treated the little tiger of the Bo family differently, but he didn't know that it was different to this extent. It had only been 3.5 days and he had already become so good? Was his grandson's cold and aloof persona about to crumble? But this was also good. The friends made when they were young were usually the most heartwarming. If Grandpa knew that his grandson wasn't making friends but was raising a child, he would definitely feel vexed. On the other hand, the golden-haired butler at the side felt that his young master was seriously making a plan to raise a child. It was really scary. Little Tiger Bo had a different view on this point. She didn't feel that she was being raised by her little princess. After all, her father had said that the person who made the decision financially was the one who raised the family. For example, her mother was the one who raised her and her father in their family. She had planned to pay the bill when she arrived at the hamburger shop. She had to show her family's financial resources to her little princess. Other than eating a lot of meat, this was Little Tiger Bo's goal. The An family didn't lack chauffeurs. This was the first time his grandson went out after he came overseas. Grandpa An's feelings were complicated. He was afraid that his grandson wouldn't like this place and would prefer to live in China, so he specially sent a Lincoln limousine. It had to be said that Grandpa An's style was very exaggerated when it came to pampering his grandson. On the other hand, when Chin Emo saw the limousine, he asked the chauffeur, who was wearing a tall hat, to change to another car. The limousine was too big. He sat in the back and couldn't carry the little tiger on his lap. This was what he had read in the book yesterday. It was best to carry the child on your lap when taking care of a child. That way, you would know that you valued her. Chin Emo thought for a moment. It was most convenient to sit in a car. He was shorter than her after all. Little Princess Chin was very concerned about his height, but he didn't show it. On the other hand, Little Tiger Bo was a little surprised when she was carried in the car. Usually, she was the one who thought of ways to pounce on the little princess. It was really abnormal for the little princess to take the initiative to hug her. Was the little princess not shy anymore? Bojo tilted her head and studied Chin Mo's expression. She could only see the coldness on his face. She couldn't see anything else. At the start, Chin Emo felt a little uncomfortable. After all, he had never hugged anyone before. After driving for 3 minutes, he got used to the milky fragrance on the little tiger's body. Bojo opened her eyes wide. She sat in his arms and looked left and right through the car window. Every time she passed a street, she would introduce it to Chin Emo. "Momo, you must go and play here. My dad brought me here, and it's very fun. Momo, there is a river on your side and across the river is my dad's school. In the past, before you came here, I would always go there to play alone. My dad is still a postgraduate student. Can you believe that a person like my dad is also a postgraduate student? My dad is too dissolute. I have to help my mom keep an eye on him. There was a period of time when I went to spy on him every day. In the end, that guy only knew how to sleep. He even placed me under his desk and made me sleep there. But when the bearded Professor Robert teaches, it is really easy for people to fall asleep. Anyway, it's not easy to describe. The scenery outside was very good. In addition, the baby's voice was soft and cute. Everything seemed to have entered a European-style painting. Everyone who lived abroad knew this. Due to the environment, the streets here were very clean. In addition, it had just snowed. There was also a sweet fragrance in the air. When they passed by the square, there was even a flock of white pigeons flying past. The people walking on the street liked to hold a cup of coffee in their hands. The European-style buildings rose from the ground. Most of them had clear colors. This was probably the charm of this city. But Chin Mo didn't look at the scenery. Instead, all his attention was on the little tiger in his arms. Other than rolling up her sleeves. From her words, he came to a conclusion. The little tiger he was going to raise seemed to have a good memory. Not all children could remember the way. Even adults would get lost. Take his mother, for example. She would never be able to tell north from south. But for the little tiger, not only could she tell the direction, but she could also remember the appearance and direction of each street, as well as what was there. This was no longer about the sense of direction. It was about memory. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. He had to admit that the more he interacted with the little tiger, the more he felt that his superpower was nothing. Because there was someone here who was similar to him. She seemed to want to confirm something. Chin Mo pulled out a book from the back of the chair in front of him. It was a book that his grandfather often read. It was an English version about business. This shouldn't be a problem for the little tiger. He flipped to a page. Little Bojio. Immersing. Little tiger Bo was still mischievous. She was thinking about how to kiss the little princess without being noticed. What's written here? Chin Mo pointed at one of the paragraphs. Boju lowered her eyes. Her eyelashes were long as she read a paragraph. After Chin Mo finished listening, he closed the book. Little tiger Bo realized something. Was the little princess asking her a question just now? It was really too cute. She wouldn't laugh at the little princess's poor English. After all, she had just started to learn the Chinese characters seriously. Just as she was about to give the little princess a kiss to comfort him, the little princess spoke again. The little princess spoke again. How much do you remember about the part that I just read? Little tiger Bo thought to herself. He was asking her for a question again. He was really arrogant and cute. He angrily repeated what he had just said. She was waiting for the little princess to look at her with admiration. However, there was nothing. Chin Mo just placed the book down and smiled. As expected, it's just as I thought. This little tiger was the same as him. She had a photographic memory. Of course, memory could be developed later on. She just needed a little bit of talent and a memory bank. It wasn't impossible. Anyone who had watched The Strongest Brain would know. Every object and place has a connection to it. As long as you remembered these connections, remembering things would be very easy. That was because it would form a small three-dimensional map in your mind. This kind of map could only be perceived by yourself. In the past, when he displayed this ability, others would be shocked. They should really come and see the little tiger he was raising. In this aspect, she seemed to be stronger. Bojio's ears perked up as she looked at the smile. She felt that the smile was too beautiful. It was like the snow that had just melted outside. Did the little princess want her to kiss him when he smiled like that? No, she had to restrain herself today. She still had to eat later. If she paid for the kiss in advance today, she would be too happy after eating, but the little princess wouldn't let her kiss him. That would be too sad. Just as little tiger Bo was thinking about this, they had reached their destination. The black low-profile car stopped by the roadside. It was a plaza with an amusement park. Chapter 1433. Chin Mo and Bojio alighted the car one after another. Their attire wasn't outstanding, but it was because they were too cute, coupled with that pair of black eyes. Very quickly, some foreigners couldn't help but look over. After all, these two Asian kids were really too cute. Especially that little boy. Why was he so charismatic? After Chin Mo alighted, he didn't leave immediately. He didn't let the little tiger run around either. Instead, he lowered his lids and adjusted her down jacket. Then he helped her adjust her scarf. When the foreigners saw this scene, they felt that it was too loving. Did all Asian kids take care of people like this? Even though the driver, Old Wang, had lived here for a long time, he knew his young master well. When he was watching from the side, he wanted to record this scene with his phone and send it to Chairmanin. It was really unbelievable. It was even more unbelievable than young master carrying Miss Gio in the car. After all, young master had never served anyone before. Chin Mo didn't think much of it. Of course, he had to take good care of his own child. Besides, the weather outside was so cold. This little tiger had always been wearing her skin on her clothes. Either her sleeves weren't rolled up properly, or her jacket wasn't zipped up. If he didn't care, who would? After Chin Emo surrounded them, he held the little tiger's hand. Bojio was overjoyed. She walked forward. If she was wearing her little tiger pajamas, she would definitely be wagging her tail. Compared to the domestic ones, overseas amusement parks would have many clowns and magicians dressed in exaggerated clothes. But the children were all the same. They watched as people with all kinds of hair walked past them. Chin Emo brought the little tiger in his direction. Little William was wearing an orange coat and a Christmas wool hat. He had his hands in his pockets and was waiting at the agreed place. In his imagination, Gio should have appeared alone. But what he didn't expect was, when he glanced up, he saw not only Gio but also someone he didn't know. And that person's appearance was outrageous. He had black eyes, black hair, and that face. Little William was an Asian. Similarly, he understood that Gio was also an Asian. Logically, Gio was also an Asian. Shouldn't she prefer Westerners? But when such a handsome man like him swayed in front of her, she did not have any reaction at all. Little William still remembered his first awakening of love. Originally, he had brought his subordinates to confess. He didn't expect Gio to think that he wanted to fight with her. In the end, he was beaten up. He was such a big guy, yet he was beaten. From then on, little William, who had a hero complex, admired Gio even more. Therefore, even in the face of such a face, he was not tempted. He was afraid that his Gio would be tempted. Little William seemed to have predicted something. He glared at Gio angrily. Sure enough, in her eyes, there was only this little demon from the east. How hateful! Little William sniffled. His nose was still red and he felt a little wronged. But he couldn't show it. Especially in front of this little demon from the east. As little William thought about this, his gaze fell on Chin Emo. At the same time, Chin Emo had also noticed the red-haired Westerner when the little tiger had walked in this direction. But there was one thing that Chin Emo was concerned about. That is, Chapter 1434. In terms of bone structure, Westerners were naturally bigger than Easterners. When they were young, they had an advantage in terms of height. Hence, after realizing this problem, young Master Chin's beautiful peach blossom eyes couldn't help but narrow. Little William noticed this too. Hence, when he lowered his lids to look at the little vixen from the east, he was exceptionally arrogant. But honestly speaking, little William wasn't young Master Chin's opponent at his level. It could be said that among the children of the same age, there were very few who were smarter than young Master Chin. Chin Emo just swept him a glance and didn't say anything. It was as though he didn't see this person. Even though the other party was taller than him, it didn't break the nobility on young Master Chin's face. Just one action from young Master Chin would make little William envious. That action wasn't anything special. He just smiled at the little tiger. Then naturally little tiger Bo hugged his waist. Momo, you must be hungry. Let's go in and eat. As she spoke, Bojio introduced him politely. This is little William. Little William, this is Momo, my little prince. She had hugged him. She even used the words my little prince. Little William felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. This wasn't the date he had imagined. However, he couldn't lose just like that. Right now, Gio was bewitched by the other party's beauty. Soon, she would find out that his style was more manly. The other party was shorter than him by a head. He didn't need to be so passive. After making up his mind, little William blew at his red hair. He wanted to show the little vixen how powerful he was. Hence, he reached out his hand and said in a very local manner, "Hey brother, welcome." Chin Emo saw through his intentions. He smiled and wanted to reach out his hand to give the other party a return gift. Unexpectedly, little Tiger Bo, who was standing beside him, was one step faster than him. She stood in front of him and then narrowed her tiger eyes. "William, what are you doing?" Little William's heart trembled. He was afraid that Gio would beat him up again. He exclaimed, "I want to shake hands with Momo." "I know you welcome him. There's no need to shake his hand. You're so strong." What if you hurt Momo? Little Tiger Bo said seriously. Little William, who was despised for being too strong, tried his best to shrink back a little. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Gio actually liked the weak type. Then what was the point of him practicing hitting the ball every day? None of them could compare to his face. And is he a doll? How could someone get hurt when they held hands? Although he did intend to teach the other party a lesson. But saying it like that was too hurtful, old friend. We are all children, but why is there such a big difference in the way we are treated? Little William's expression was extremely colorful. Chinemo looked at the little tiger in front of him, and the smile on his face deepened. When little William saw that smile, he almost attacked. After all, he was young and vigorous. Oh no, he had the spirit of a hero. When this little Eastern demon was laughing just now, he even raised his eyebrows in his direction. That was a blatant provocation. Unfortunately, Gio didn't let him shake hands, and he didn't dare to shake hands. It seemed that he could only find time to teach this little demon from the East a lesson in the future. He would go to school anyway. Chapter 1435. Little William was still thinking about this. He didn't expect the other party to send himself to him. That was because the little vixen from the East said faintly, "It's fine to shake hands." Little William straightened his body instantly. His red hair moved and his entire body emitted an aura that seemed to be saying, "Since you walked right into my trap, I'll teach you a lesson now." Chinemo was wearing a black down jacket and a pure white scarf that was wrapped around his neck. It was as black as ink. He stretched his hand out. Little William smiled. He thought that he was very devilish and unruly. His hair was still red. The moment his fingers touched, Little William used a lot of strength. He was waiting for this person to kneel down and beg for mercy. Wait a minute. This didn't seem right. Little William's eyes widened because of the pain from his fingers. A child couldn't hide his emotions and his face was filled with astonishment. He wanted to use more strength to retaliate. But the other party didn't give him the chance. His right hand was starting to turn numb. However, just as Little William was about to bend over from the pain, the person on the other end suddenly released his hand. The person on the other end suddenly let go. Then he curled his lips and said in a calm voice, "My hand hurts a little." "William, you're really strong." Little William, whose hand was numb. "Excuse me? Me?" He should be the one complaining about his hand hurting. Little William was panting with rage. He wanted to pull the little vixen's collar up. On the other side, Bojo grabbed his wrist. Her big eyes were still black. She asked seriously, "William, do you want me to beat you up again?" Little William. This wasn't the date he had imagined. He wanted to tell Gio that the little vixen was acting. However, when the vixen turned his head, he seemed to be in pain. Little William was on the verge of tears. Were all the Chinese so good at acting? Gio. Little William's eyes were red. Little Tiger Bojo patted his shoulder and said angrily, "William, don't pretend to be weak. Come, let's go in. I'll give you your favorite Big Mac." Little William. Why was he pretending to be weak when he cried? He was so angry. Wait a minute. When the little vixen glanced at his shoulder again, why was there a murderous look in his eyes? Hee, you're not going to pretend anymore? Little William took a deep breath and prepared to fight. He didn't expect the person standing in front of him to look a little lonely from his angle. His eyes were half closed as he shook his hand. If he wasn't the person involved, he would have thought that the other party was really injured. But he knew that the other party wasn't injured. He really wanted to say something. Unfortunately, Gio had already moved. "Momo, are you okay?" Mh. Chinemo seemed to be in low spirits. He seemed to be in pain. "It won't affect the hamburger." Little William wanted to say, "Don't you have a conscience?" It didn't affect him in the first place. It would be strange if it did. Don't think I can't see through your tricks. You're just trying to confuse people. Little William turned his head helplessly. As expected, he saw Gio's distressed face. He watched helplessly as Gio pulled the little vixen's hand up and placed it by her lips. She kissed it and said in a baby tiger's voice, "Momo, I'll help you kiss it and it won't hurt anymore. The next time Little William shakes hands with you, You just have to look at him. He's so strong, it'll hurt you easily. Chapter 1436. What did he mean by just taking a glance at him? Gio, when you hit me in the past, you had to bow to me first. Why did you disappear after seeing this little vixen? Sob, sob, sob. Little William's sadness had already flowed like a river. But in front of his love rival, he couldn't be weak. At that time, little William didn't understand what kind of opponent he had met. He could only say that the child was too young. He was still looking at Chin Mo from the corner of his eyes. Chin Mo's face was as elegant as before. But when Boju lowered her eyes, he looked up and looked towards little William. His gaze was so cold that even the big guy, little William, felt a chill down his spine. Where did Gio bring such a person from? He looked like a devil. She seemed to have heard little William's inner cry for help. A clear English voice came from the other side. Chin? Why are you here? Chin? Little Tiger Bo was the first to react. Her round tiger eyes looked towards the direction of the voice. There were 3 little girls wearing puffy skirts and furry jackets standing there. The person who spoke was Angelia. She had blue eyes and golden hair. When the sunlight shone on her, it seemed as though there was a layer of halo. This made little Tiger Bo, who had always been obsessed with beauty, take a few more glances. She turned her head and said, Momo, is this your new friend? She looks so pretty. Chin Mo knew a certain someone's preferences. When she saw someone beautiful, her pair of tiger eyes would definitely light up. But a certain someone's preferences. It was time to change it. Chin Mo turned his body and discreetly let a certain little tiger stay behind him. At this moment, Angelia and the other 2 little girls walked over. They were still holding the ice cream cone that they had just bought. Chin, are you here to play too? When Angelia ate the ice cream, her blue eyes were very attractive. However, after studying it, little Tiger Bo realized that it wasn't as pretty as her little princess. Her little princess's eyes looked black, but under the sunlight, one could see that they were glowing with amber. Immersing. There was no comparison at all. Chin Mo didn't know what Bojo was thinking about. He just looked at the little tiger in front of him. Her tiger eyes kept moving around other people's bodies. He frowned slightly. Then he reached out and put on the hood of the little tiger jacket. He looked up at Angelia and said in a calm voice, Okay. After the banquet. Angelia was used to William's lack of words. She turned her head and said in surprise, William, you know Chin? When we were in school, didn't you say that you didn't know there were Asians moving in? When William heard this, the expression on his face became even more indescribable. After all, he had just found out that this demon was the Asian who had just moved here. The one who called himself the Little Prince. He really didn't want to talk anymore, but he had to force himself to say, I'm trying to be mysterious. I see. Angelia wasn't sure what had happened, but it didn't affect her happiness when she saw Chin Mo. Even her voice was cheerful. Chin, are you going to the amusement park? It's fun inside. No, thank you. When Chin Mo said this, he didn't look at Angelia. Instead, he looked to the side and pressed down the little tiger's paw that wanted to be naughty. Chapter 1437. She shouldn't be able to see him. Besides him, who else did she want to see? Should he acknowledge another little princess? When Chin Mo thought of this, he pressed down on her wrist again so that she wouldn't have to pat someone's shoulder. How about this? You won't be able to see him. Bojo stretched her hand forward as though she was measuring the distance. Chin Mo held her hand. I'll hold your hand. Don't shake the hat. The wind is strong and it will blow on your face. Okay. Little Tiger Bo thought that her little princess was really considerate. She could even think of such a thing. William, who had seen everything from start to finish and knew what Chin Mo was like, felt a surge of emotions surging through his heart. This guy did it on purpose. What did he treat Gio as? Was she his possession? No. He had to warn this devil. But he couldn't do it in front of Gio. The big guy, William, wasn't too stupid. Gio was definitely addicted to the beauty and wouldn't be able to see the truth clearly. He had to warn her behind her back. If he wanted to do so, he needed a good place. Hence, William took the initiative and said, Hey Angelia, there are many people at the amusement park now. Teen, and I don't want to go now. Why don't you come to the shop with us to eat something? That's great. When Angelia said these words, her gaze hadn't left the little figure with the hat. Was she from the East too? She must be Chin's family. Otherwise, with Chin's personality, he wouldn't be so friendly to anyone. They were all kids, so they couldn't hide their expressions in words. Chin, is this your sister? No. He didn't seem to be bothered to say another word, but he was so polite that no one could find any problems with his etiquette. This was Chin Mo. Angelia was a little depressed. After all, she was still a kid. Her excitement just now was gone. But she still wanted to eat with Chin Mo. Hence, the alliance of eating burgers became 6 from 3. Chin Mo was the first to enter. But Bo Jio was the one who ordered the food. Little Tiger Bo was very persistent about this. After all, she hadn't forgotten that she wanted to show off her wealth this time. In this aspect, Chin Mo didn't have any intention to compete. After today's incident, he understood something. No wonder Uncle Bo was like that at home. Sometimes appearing weak wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, apart from discovering that a certain someone was a genius, Chin Mo also realized that the little tiger he was raising had some misconceptions about his identity. Little Tiger Bo didn't think that she had made a mistake. After all, when she grew up, she would become a CEO just like her mother. It had to be said. Little Tiger Bo was quite cool when she was on her own. She was queuing up to order food. Her nose bridge was exquisite and straight. Her eyelashes were long and black. Many people were looking at her, but she didn't seem to notice. Chin Mo lifted the corner of his lips when he saw this. A certain little tiger always felt that this was beautiful, and that was beautiful. He might as well go home and look at himself in the mirror. None of these people could compare to her. Even children can't be absolutely quiet while waiting for their meals. Chin Mo got up and went to the washroom. If William followed them, he would not attract any attention. He was right. They had to take advantage of this opportunity to act. Chin Mo had long noticed the person behind him, but he continued to wash his hands leisurely. After washing his hands, Chin Mo turned to leave. Chapter 1438. Chin Mo threw the tissue he used to wipe his hands into the bin. His face was cold and he didn't seem to care about the big guy, Little William. This infuriated Little William. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell Gio how you acted just now? Seriously, did this little demon from the East have to force him to use his big move to know how powerful he was? Little William snorted. Chin Mo turned his body and his gaze turned cold. He was obviously shorter than him. But Little William actually felt that this person was scarier than his father. Because of what he said. If you say anything, I'll break your legs. Little William. This was different from what he had imagined. Shouldn't this little demon be scared to death? Why was his aura so strong? Who exactly was threatening who? I'll go and tell her. The big guy straightened his back to show off his height. Little did he know that this was what Chin Mo disliked the most. His little tiger's friend was actually taller than him. You can go and tell her. Chin Mo scoffed. The devilish smile that Little William saw appeared on his face again. But, do you think Gio will believe you? The big guy, Little William, had little experience. Such a small kid couldn't imagine that there was such a shameless person in the world. You, Chin Mo interrupted him. I have something to tell you too. You're a boy and she's a girl. In China, there's a saying that goes, men and women shouldn't touch each other. In the future, don't do intimate actions to her. Little William wasn't convinced. You even held her hand just now. Chin Mo glanced at him slowly. Can I be the same as you? Little William. How are they different? No, he had to expose this little demon from the East. However, very quickly, Little William realized that he was daydreaming. The main reason was Gio. Momo, this is really delicious. It's just a little spicy, but it's okay. Try it and I'll feed you a mouthful of Coke. It can neutralize the spiciness. Little William. Gio, wake up. No matter how good-looking that little demon from the East was, he was still a boy. Did he need you to feed him Coke? Most importantly, why did you have to kiss his face when you were feeding him? This wasn't right. Didn't you say that men and women shouldn't touch each other in China? Chinemo seemed to have seen through little William's thoughts. At first, he lowered his lids and drank his cola. When the little tiger kissed him, he turned his head. The place that was kissed was still a little hot, but he still swept a glance in little William's direction. His entire body was filled with a cold aura. It seemed to be saying, "I'm very respectful of Chinese etiquette, but I can't stop Gio from kissing me." Little William didn't want to talk anymore. He bit the ox burger in his hand. The little tiger was different. She was very happy, especially when she fed the little princess with the cola in her hands. The little princess's cold look was so cute that she couldn't help but kiss him. Right now he was just practicing how to raise them. When the little princess really became hers, she would be able to feed the little princess every day. Chinemo looked at the person in front of him who had big eyes, and was holding a can of Coke with both hands for him to drink. I don't know what this guy is thinking, he doesn't even want to eat. He couldn't bear to watch any longer, so he took a French fry, dipped it in ketchup, and fed it to the silly little tiger. Bojio, on the other hand, was eating one by one, looking like she was enjoying herself. If little tiger Bo was considered a beginner when it came to feeding people, then young Master Chin's feeding would be completely different. He took care of everything slowly. When the little tiger stained the corner of her mouth while eating the hamburger, he would even pick up a napkin and help her wipe it off. Angelia, who was sitting at the side, couldn't move her eyes away. She waited until Chinemo stood up and went to get something else. He couldn't help but ask Bojio, "Hey, what exactly is your relationship?" "Relationship?" Bojio smiled. Her eyes were big and a little mischievous. "Momo is going to marry me in the future. Let's practice first." "Marry you?" William, who was listening on the side, couldn't sit still anymore. "Gio, you don't know how that little demon spoke to me. If you knew you, bang." Bojio placed the cola down and grabbed little William's collar with one hand. "Are you looking for a beating? If you say anything bad about my Momo again, I'll pack you up and feed you to the tigers." "No, it's him." Little William was still struggling. Chinemo had already returned. He was holding a new bag of fries. He leaned forward calmly and held the little tiger's hand. "Don't fight." Bojio's eyes turned round and she explained, "Momo, I'm usually very gentle. Today is an exception." Little William. "Gentle? You? It's a miracle that you didn't hit me today. Where is your gentleness?" Even his Gio knew how to lie. It was really painful. Angelia didn't have many thoughts in her mind. She tilted her head and blurted out, "Chin, is she the child betrothed that Grandpa arranged for you? You Chinese people have an ancient way of getting married. Oh my God, you have to take care of a wife from a young age. That's not fun at all." Chinemo raised his eyebrows when he heard this. "Child betrothal? She just said that you will marry her when you grow up. Did she use the wrong grammar?" Angelia felt that this was weird. Chinemo glanced at the little tiger who had been naughty just now. Her cheeks were puffed up and she looked angry. He rolled up Bojio's sleeves and said, "She did use the wrong grammar." Angelia smiled. She knew that little prince wouldn't agree to such an ancient method. Chinemo looked up. "She should be the one marrying me, not the other way around. All the children." Angelia paused. It was too obvious. William was so angry that he wanted to scratch the table. But there was one thing. Ever since that day, everyone knew that the new little prince from the east had a young wife who was betrothed to him. But for some reason, that young wife hadn't entered school yet. William had said that she had been living here for a short period of time. The news reached Grandpa N's ears through Angelia's grandfather. As the person who had betrothed his grandson, he almost didn't drink his tea. "Child betrothal? My grandson said that? And you're too dishonest. Even now you're still not telling the truth." Old Master N thought to himself, "Brother, am I not telling the truth? As a grandfather, I don't even know that I have a little granddaughter-in-law." Hence, during the dinner that day. Chapter 1439. Chinemo had expected his grandfather to ask him about this. He put down the knife and fork in his hand and said, "I'm not a little wife, but I'll take care of little Bojio in the future." "Grandfather, You can go to the Bo family and ask her to come over to eat when she has no food. Their house is always empty. Immersing. Old Master and couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. He was going to take care of someone else's child, but he still didn't admit it. He understood his grandson. He probably didn't have that kind of relationship. Also, he was just a little old. It was probably because he liked the little tiger too much. The love between family members. At that time, Old Master and wasn't sure. When young Master Chin said he was taking care of her, he was really taking care of her. Just like that, the two little people naturally piled up into a pile. Little Tiger Bo liked to play games. Every time she came to the Inn family, she would wear a set of little tiger pajamas and climb around. Occasionally, an owl would land on the treetops. Little Tiger Bo looked at little Princess Chin, who was still playing chess with herself. She turned her round eyes and ran downstairs. She climbed up the wall. The young golden-haired butler stood below and said softly in English, "Miss Gio, hurry up and come down. It's too dangerous." Bo Gio didn't listen. The golden-haired butler had no choice but to use his trump card. "Young master is here." Little Tiger Bo's ears perked up. She looked down, and when she saw that there was no one, she smiled. "Brother Butler, you are being mischievous again. Where is the little princess?" The golden-haired butler. Who was the mischievous one? Bo Gio was still playing around. She didn't know that someone had seen this scene. She sighed softly and reached out to pinch her eyebrows. Helplessness appeared on her cold face. Then she walked to the bottom of the tree and stood tall. "Come down." Little Tiger Bo's back stiffened. She reached out to scratch her face and looked at the owner of the voice. A month had passed. She didn't know if it was because of the milk Chin Emo drank. At this moment, he was actually as tall as Bo Gio. When he stood there, his aura was much stronger. "Momo, there is an owl here. I came up because it is too bored staying on the tree. I want to bring it to the ground to play with it." The golden-haired butler listened at the side and looked up at the sky. To think that such an excuse could be used. The owl expressed that it was not going to take the blame. Chin Emo was already used to the little tiger's naughtiness. He stretched out his hands and repeated with a cold expression, "Come down." Acting cute didn't work. Little Tiger Bo hugged the tree and slid down. Chin Emo hugged her. They were the same age, but when he hugged Bo Gio, he seemed like a big brother. It was probably due to his aura. The butler wanted to help, but he gave him a look. A young master who raised a child was really afraid of his words. Chin Emo removed the leaf from the little tiger's head, his voice calm. "Didn't I tell you not to climb trees and walls all the time?" "I can't control it," Bo Gio replied honestly. Chin Emo paused, not saying a word. The blonde butler really wanted to know what his young master was thinking. If there was anyone who could make the young master feel helpless, it would be the 9th young mistress. Coincidentally, Miss Jill was growing her teeth these days, so half of her face was puffed up. Their young master would bring her over from the Bo family every day and watch her brush her teeth and wash her face. The blonde butler just wanted to say that even his father hadn't been so attentive when he was raising him. Was this the cultural difference between the Chinese and the West? Even raising a child was different? Very soon, when the young blonde butler got to know the other Eastern families, he understood a principle. He was definitely the only one who raised a child like his young master. For example, if he was an ordinary child, he definitely wouldn't have such a conversation. Chin Emo. Little Bo Gio. Bo Gio immersing. Chin Emo. Open your mouth. Bo Gio. Momo, my teeth don't hurt as much anymore. Can I not take the medicine? Chin Emo. No. Bo Gio. Can I kiss you after I take the medicine? Chin Emo. MMH. Their young master used his looks to coax her every day. From the beginning. Little Bo Gio, if you kiss me again, I'll throw you out through the window. Until now, he had tacitly agreed to Miss Gio doing anything intimate with him. When there was no one at the Bo family side, Miss Gio would still stay over. Every time, young master would take care of her. As one of the parties involved, little Tiger Bo didn't agree with this point. She was obviously the one taking care of Momo. Momo was afraid of the dark and didn't like thunder. She could sleep beside him and hug him. She could also show off her strength as a boyfriend. Regarding this point, little William couldn't help but say. After hearing this, little William couldn't help but say, Gio, think carefully. This time, my daddy is filming in a tropical rainforest. Are you really not going? How could that little demon from the east be afraid of the dark? Gio must have been deceived by him again. Tropical rainforest? Little Tiger Bo lowered her head and pulled her little keyboard. All right, I'll go on the same day and come back on the same day. Little William immediately said. It's in the suburbs. I'll be back in 4 hours. It was supposed to be 4 hours. But once they started filming, time was out of their control. As usual, Chin Emo appeared at the Bo family's house at 4 in the afternoon. He brought little Bo Gio, who had to complete missions every day, home for dinner. Unexpectedly, he wasn't there. The person who was there was Mr. Bo. He seemed to be preparing to go out. He wore a black hooded jacket and a pair of leather gloves. It didn't match his usual image of a man who lived off a woman. Uncle Bo, it seemed that no matter what Mr. Bo looked like, Chin Emo would always be able to maintain his manners. When Mr. Bo saw Chin Emo outside the door, he held the door frame with one hand and smiled. No matter how he looked at it, he looked evil. Are you here to fetch Gio? She isn't here today. She went out to play with little William. Are you angry? Chin Emo paused. His voice was calm. No. Oh. Mr. Bo smiled lightly and raised his eyebrows. Then I'll let Gio play outside for a while longer. MMH. Chin Emo replied casually. He wore a little scarf and walked back to the villa. He wanted to finish playing checkers just now. But when he saw the little keyboard on the sofa, he felt a wave of frustration. When it was almost 6 o'clock, the En family started eating on time. Grandpa happened to be able to stay at home for a meal today. When he saw that the seat beside his grandson was empty, he asked curiously, Where's Gio? The young golden-haired butler tried his best to signal Grandpa with his eyes. Grandpa was still guessing the reason. His grandson, who was sitting opposite him, said, She went out to play with someone else. Grandpa felt that he didn't see wrongly. His grandson's eyes were cold when he said this. He didn't know if it was because one person was missing. Even though there was a table full of dishes, the atmosphere at the dining table didn't lighten up. Chapter 1440. 7 o'clock. Usually at this hour, Chin Emo would bring Bo Gio out for a walk. Raising a little tiger would definitely be followed by begging. But today, Chin Emo didn't go out. Instead, he sat in the study room with a book in his hands. After flipping a few pages, he looked up and glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. 8 o'clock. If a certain someone came back at 8 o'clock, he wouldn't pursue the fact that she didn't listen to him. Chin Emo had never felt that time was so long. 7 o'clock, 7:30. 8 o'clock, 8:30. He overturned the previous settings and changed his mind. He would wait for the little tiger to come back at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. The street lights outside the window were lit up. The Christmas tree was beautiful as usual. But Chin Emo wasn't in the mood to admire it. He took the book and went upstairs. The young butler looked at the cold little face and was shocked. He hurriedly took out his phone and read a few pages of a fantasy cultivation novel. It started to rain outside. The lights in the Bo family's house were still dark. Bo Gio didn't know that her little princess was angry because of this. When she returned home, she saw that the lights weren't turned on. She automatically walked towards the En family's house. She didn't climb over the wall because there were too many obstacles outside. She carried the mushrooms she had dug in the jungle and walked through the main door. When he saw Bo Gio, the young butler hurriedly asked her to go upstairs. When Chin Emo heard the sound, he was lying on the bed. He wasn't asleep, but his little face was obviously much colder than usual. Bo Gio turned and looked at the young butler. Her tiger eyes blinked. The young butler signaled for her to go over. Actually, he didn't need to signal for Bo Gio to go over. She even brought back the mushrooms she had plucked. Momo, I brought you a present. No one replied. Bo Gio scratched her face and took a step forward. She sat by the bed for a while, and then ran into the bathroom. When she came out again, she had changed into her little tiger pajamas. Then she poured a glass of milk and tiptoed to take the Arabian Nights book from the bookshelf. She placed it beside Chin Mo's hand. Her tiger eyes were round and black. She had always been straightforward. Momo, are you angry? Chin Mo didn't have any intention to care about this person. After all, a certain little tiger never listened to him. Bojio wagged her tiger tail and leaned forward, planting a kiss on his face. How was he supposed to ignore her? Chin Mo tilted his head, his voice still calm. Is the tropical rainforest good? How did Momo know where she went? Little Tiger Bo was puzzled for a moment. Then she said, it's fun but Momo isn't here. When Chin Mo heard this, the frustration in his heart subsided a little. He said nonchalantly, next time you go out, tell me in advance. I got the kitchen to make bean buns for you. They were all wasted. When little Tiger Bo heard this, she felt guilty and lowered her head. Chin Mo continued, it's not that I'm not letting you play, but don't go so far next time. Alright, go to sleep. It had to be said that shrewdness was something that was definitely cultivated from a young age. Young Master Chin now knew how to support a certain someone. He could retreat in order to advance. Little Tiger Bo had already started to reflect on herself. When she glanced up, she saw Chin Mo's lonely back view. One of them wrapped his arms around her waist and swore seriously, in the future, I will bring Momo wherever I go. Chin Mo paused for a moment before replying, MMH. Little Tiger Bo saw that he wasn't in a good mood and felt even more guilty. Unbeknownst to her, the coldness in Chin Mo's eyes had dissipated. He sat up on the bed with something else in his eyes. Little Tiger Bo thought he was still angry with her and followed behind him. After taking a few steps, she realized that he had opened the drawer and pulled out a bag of potato chips that he had prepared for her. Momo, don't you not eat these things? At this moment, Chin Mo spoke in a calm voice. I was worried that you would be hungry when you weren't around, so I didn't eat dinner. While he was saying these words, the young butler happened to come in with a plate of fruits. Every night, young master would feed Miss Gio 2 mouthfuls of fruit, because Miss Gio loved to eat meat. In young master's words, he was afraid that the child's vitamin intake could not keep up, so he simply used fruits to supplement. Coincidentally, he heard this sentence and thought to himself, young master, you're going against your heart by saying this. Miss Gio went out with Director William. How could she be hungry? You obviously didn't have an appetite because Miss Gio went to play with other people and didn't play with you. However, as a qualified butler, even though he was young, he knew that he wouldn't say such things out loud. However, little Tiger Bo was born with a strong sense of empathy. Her round eyes looked out of the window. It was raining outside. When she came back just now, there was even thunder. These were the things that the little princess hated the most. Little Tiger Bo knew that the Yin family ate their meals on time. The little princess didn't even eat dinner because of her. Yet she played outside for the entire day. Little Tiger Bo felt completely guilty. She stretched out her 2 little paws and hugged Chin Mo from behind. Her tail was still wagging. Momo, I was wrong. Seeing this, Chin Mo felt that it was about time and directly said what was on his mind. Little Bojio, if you want to go out and play with other people, don't play with me anymore, understand? I understand. I will be obedient in the future. Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail again and said very seriously. Chin Mo glanced over and curled her hair with his fingers. I will forgive you this time. Little Tiger Bo nodded. In order to show that she was very obedient, she didn't need Chin Mo to rush her. She took a shower in advance and came out smelling good. She lay at the side and listened to Chin Mo read her a bedtime story with her big tiger eyes. It had to be said. Young Master Chin's method was very effective. Because the next day, when little William carried the basketball over again, little Tiger Bo rejected him decisively. Little Tiger Bo rejected him decisively. I'm not going. Little William's little face was originally red. He was filled with anticipation for today's date on the basketball court. After all, he had already done his research on the little demon from the east. The other party didn't like this kind of sweaty exercise. Hence, it was impossible for him to go out with Gio. Then he would be able to be alone with Gio again. He didn't expect this. Didn't we agree? Little William's red hair drooped. Gio hugged the little keyboard in her hands and said seriously, yesterday, I left Momo at home alone. He didn't even eat. Also, he is afraid of the dark. I have to accompany him. Afraid of the dark? That little demon from the east? How was that possible? No way. He had to expose him today. Jiao Qin wouldn't be afraid. Just as little William was about to go all out, the person he wanted to expose appeared. He was wearing a small black suit and his hair was styled. He looked like a real little prince. He glanced at little William. There was a sense of oppression amidst his nobility. Little William subconsciously gulped a few times and swallowed his words back. That wasn't right. What was he afraid of? Even if this little demon had grown taller, he still wasn't as strong as him. He didn't need to be afraid at all. But he didn't know why. When little William saw Chinemo, he would remember the day at the burger shop. The way this little demon had looked behind him. It made people want to run away after seeing him. Thinking about it carefully, only Jill was so close to him. Although Angelia and the others called this little demon Prince, it could be seen that they were a little afraid when they faced this little demon. Of course, Chinemo noticed the red-haired William's gaze. Grandpa said that he had to be more polite to foreigners. This would show the thousands of years of etiquette in China. Indeed, Chinemo wasn't impolite to others. But there was one thing. A certain red-haired man always wanted to abduct the little tiger he was raising when he wasn't around. This debt had to be settled. Little William looked at that person and narrowed his eyes. He said calmly, "What can't I do?" Afraid of the dark. Little William braced himself. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well finish his sentence. You're already so old and you're still a boy. Do you think it's possible for you to be afraid of the dark? It was a pity that little William had underestimated young Master Qin's shamelessness. Everyone has fear. When Chinemo said this, he seemed a little lonely. As a boy, I don't want to be afraid of the dark. I'll be laughed at. But I have no choice. Little William. Wait a minute, how could there be such a thing? The young butler, who had been listening to the entire process, raised his head and looked at the ceiling. He would never tell anyone that his young master dared to go to the basement alone at night. Every time he watched a horror movie, he treated it as pseudoscience. He was even more disdainful of ghosts and demons than adults. So, he was definitely pretending to be afraid of the dark. But he was acting so shamelessly. Probably only his young master could do that. After all, it was effective. Because he had heard Miss Jo's words. Momo, don't be afraid. I'll accompany you in the future. William probably wants to go out and play with you. He has many children accompanying him. Moreover, he's so strong. He's not afraid at all. Little William felt his heart hurt. Just like that. From then on, little Tiger Bo never went out alone with anyone again. It was because of Chinemo. Of course, it was also because of her toothache. Speaking of this, little Tiger Bo's appetite decreased because of her toothache. Chinemo was really anxious. Every day, he would coax her to eat during dinner. In the morning, when she woke up to brush her teeth, he would ask little Tiger Bo to stand beside him, and he would brush her teeth for her. Thus, in these 10 days, Li Tianlan's eyes lit up. Grandpa would always see the scene of his grandson raising a child in the morning. The young golden-haired butler didn't mention the difference in education between China and China anymore. He basically understood that his young master was raising Miss Jiu like a porcelain doll. It wasn't just the details of life. There was also the time when his young master was reading. Miss Jiu would play with her little keyboard at the side. How good were these two children? It could be explained with one point. In the past, other than a bed, a bookshelf, and a wardrobe, nothing else could be found in his young master's room. Ever since he met Miss Jiu. Snacks, a couch, a small toolbox, and 2 laptops. In his young master's words, these were all Miss Jiu's toys. But the young butler couldn't understand after thinking for a long time. How did a toolbox become a toy? Of course, there were times when it was quiet. 10 in the morning. The 2 children would be in the study room. Every time it was at this time. Time would always pass very slowly. Chinemo wore a pure white sweater. One of his hands was pressed against the rice paper on the wooden table. His other hand was separated by little Tiger Bo's hand. He held a brush and taught someone how to read, stroke by stroke. The sunlight shone in and shone on the 2 children's bodies. The young butler watched from the side. His eyes were filled with amazement. He always knew that his young master was good-looking. But he was such a gentle young master. This was probably the only time he would see it. Rather than saying that his young master looked like a prince with British blood, it would be better to say that he looked like a young master from an ancient family. His every move was like a splash of ink. It was naturally noble. If it was just him, people might not be unable to shift their gazes away. However, little Tiger Bo was standing in front of him. They were children of the same age. The taller one was teaching the shorter one how to write. Little Tiger Bo's tail was wagging. The tip of her nose was stained with ink. It seemed to have been purposely dotted there. She was just short of drawing 3 whiskers. She looked very serious, as though she was completing a big task. He probably found it interesting to see her like this. His young master would always turn his gaze subconsciously. The corners of his lips would curl up slightly. At that moment, the young golden-haired butler thought of a poem he had learned in the vast Eastern literature. That's right. Ancient fantasy cultivation. Wastrel's counterattack against ancient web novels. This was the vast Eastern literature he thought of. There was a line in the poem that went like this. My husband came riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with green plums. This was probably the purest form of emotion. But compared to normal childhood sweethearts, there was a difference between this pair. It could be said that the knowledge and part of Bojio's lifestyle habits were learned from Chin Mo. He was the one who taught her the first word she wrote. He was also the one who taught her the first ancient poem she memorized. He was even the first one to tell her a bedtime story. He coaxed her to sleep, ate her, and drank her medicine. However, Bojio was still mischievous. After all, writing calligraphy was just a way for her to admire the little princess's beauty from a close distance. Momo, your eyelashes are so long. They are even longer than mine. This was a certain someone who couldn't control herself after writing these 4 words. Her hand had already reached over and touched the cold and handsome little face in front of her. Chinemo paused. He knew that he couldn't change her habit of touching him. He didn't force her. He wrapped a scarf around her neck and brought the little tiger out of the door. He had to take a breather at an appropriate time. It was brought forward today. After all, a certain someone had been very obedient for the past half a month. But very quickly this breather was interrupted. Chapter 1441. After seeing the unreliable behavior of a certain adult, Chin-Mo calmly brought little Tiger Bo towards him. Chin-Mo pulled little Tiger Bo towards him without a change in expression. Then he reached out and caressed her head. Mr. Bo was amused by this scene. This little rascal from the Chin family really wanted to raise a child for him? Mr. Bo raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he bent down and carried his Lord Jio up. All right, I'm afraid you and your little princess will have to meet again in the afternoon. Follow me out. Where are we going? Little Tiger Bo asked. Then she added, Dad, you appeared at the wrong time. Mr. Bo smiled and placed her on the motorcycle. I'm really sorry. But Lord Jio, did you forget what day of the week it is today? Little Tiger Bo tilted her head. Friday. There would always be some messy programs in her father's university. Last time it was a debate. This time she didn't know what it was. But her father would occasionally participate in it, so that her mother would appear in school to cheer for him. Little Tiger Bo knew why her father came to find her. He wanted her to act cute. But she couldn't bear to leave her Momo. Chin-Mo saw that the little tiger on the motorcycle kept looking at him. Also, he thought that she was just taking a walk. She didn't even wear a hat. The more he looked at her, the deeper his frown became. He took the scarf off his neck and wrapped it around little Tiger Bo like a brother. His voice was still calm. Be obedient when you go out with Uncle Bo. Don't be naughty all the time. Don't take off your scarf, understand? Mh. Little Tiger Bo nodded heavily. Chin-Mo turned and placed the mint candy in his hand into little Tiger Bo's pocket. Then he looked up and said to a certain adult, Uncle Bo, you have to watch over her. She likes to eat candies but her teeth haven't fully recovered. She can't eat too much. This is today's amount. Don't buy more for her. Uncle Bo bought too much the last time. After she finished eating, she didn't sleep much. The experienced big kid, Mr. Bo smiled when he heard this. Was this little brat reminding him? After all, he was indeed weak in raising Lord Gio. But if the little brat from the Chin family said this, he should be the one to say it. Lord Gio belonged to his family. If I don't go to the candy store this time, I won't have the chance to buy it for her. Don't worry. As Mr. Bo spoke, he took a step forward and rode on the bike. He leaned against the bike and buckled his helmet. He didn't try to hide his handsomeness anymore. When the corners of his clothes fluttered in the wind, there was a child sitting behind the bike. This could be said to be very pleasing to the eye. Chin Mo watched as the motorcycle moved further and further away. When he couldn't see it anymore, he retracted his gaze. When the young butler heard that Mr. Bo had taken Miss Gio away, he had a premonition that his young master's appetite wouldn't be so good today. As expected, they didn't even let the kitchen prepare dessert. This time it wasn't because he was in a bad mood. However, since a certain someone wasn't around, it was meaningless for him to eat these things alone. Fortunately, Grandpa said that there would be a gathering in a while, and wanted to take him out. Chin Mo finally found something to do. Whenever he attended a business gathering with Grandpa, Chin Mo would dress like a little prince. This was something that little William couldn't compare to. Hence, even if the two of them met, little William could only be angry in his heart, and didn't dare to say anything. After all, it was too deceptive. Moreover, Gio had specially reminded him that if he met her little princess at the gathering, he should protect him well. After all, her little princess was too good-looking. She was afraid that he would be in danger. When little William heard this, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. In the end, there was only one sentence left. His daddy was lying to him. Was he saying that girls would like him because he was tall and strong? Wrong. As long as he was good-looking, nothing else was important, okay? In addition, this good-looking person was always acting. He didn't give anyone a way out. All the children who came for the gathering were bewitched by him. This should be the reason why the little vixen came here. It was simply too infuriating. Was he not going to make any friends today? Little William looked at the cold back view that was surrounded by people. When other children spoke, he would occasionally reply with one or two sentences. He really looked like an iceberg. He must have known that this style was popular now, so he deliberately acted like this. When he was in front of Gio, he wasn't like this at all. He wasn't so difficult to get close to. Little William was really wrong about this matter. The real Chin Mo was like this. He was polite and cold to everyone. Only a certain little tiger. It would make him patiently coax her, and it would make him feel like a peer, happy and unhappy at the same time. However, she was too young. At that time, they didn't understand what kind of feelings they had. The time for the gathering continued to extend. It lasted until 11 p.m. before it was finally over. At the start, Chin Mo didn't care. After all, it wasn't considered late in the country. He was 5 or 6 years old. At this time, he was already sleepy. When he alighted from the car, Chin Mo's black eyes were still a little dazed. When he saw the little tiger sitting in front of his house, he instantly woke up. Instinctively, he opened his jacket and wrapped the little tiger in it. Why are you here? I'm waiting for Momo. Little Tiger Bo tapped her chin on his shoulder. When she saw him, even her round tiger eyes started to stare blankly. Her voice became even more sleepy. I thought Momo would come back in a while. I didn't expect him to take so long. I didn't expect him to. Gradually, little Tiger Bo closed her eyes. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she fell asleep in seconds. Soon Chin Mo couldn't hear the person in his arms talking anymore. He could only hear her soft breathing. Chin Mo reached out and touched the person's ear. It was cold. He carried the person in his arms. As the person was about the same size as him, Chin Mo couldn't help but sway slightly when he walked. However, when the driver wanted to reach out, he avoided him. The young butler wasn't around. Old Master and was a little surprised to see such a remorseful expression on his grandson's face. From that day onwards, no matter what happened, Chin Mo would always come back before 9 p.m. It was the same even if he attended a business gathering. After all, he had a child to take care of. Right now, the little tiger in his arms was cold. It must be especially cold when she sat outside. The next day, Chinemo found an extra butler. This butler was in charge of opening the door for the little tiger. Chinemo even made an extra key and placed it in little Tiger Bo's pocket. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the two children were inseparable. Because this wasn't enough. Sometimes when Chinemo went out, he would bring the little tiger with him. He was like a big brother taking care of the child the entire time. Every time people saw these two, they would compare their grandchildren with each other. The more they compared, the more obvious the difference was. From then on, even Angelia and the group of little girls understood that they didn't have a chance. Almost everyone in the business circle knew that the heir of the in-group and the child who was betrothed when they were young were so close that Chinemo rolled up the child's sleeves when he ate. Needless to say, when the child's shoelaces were untied, Chinemo would even squat down and tie the child's shoelaces. Then he would rub the little tiger's head. Seeing this scene, many couples who already had a boy wanted a little girl. The scene of a big brother doting on the child was too heartwarming. It was just a few things outsiders didn't know. For example, during the 2 days before the new year, Chinemo received a call from his father. The content was the same. There were many missions in the military, so he might not be able to go home to celebrate the new year with him. The biggest festival in China was the New Year. This was a day for family reunions. However, Chinemo had never enjoyed such a reunion. In the military courtyard, it was his grandfather who accompanied him for the new year. After his grandfather retired, it was obvious that his father had to take the lead. As for his mother, her career was getting further and further away and she couldn't find time. Logically speaking, Chinemo was used to it. However, this year he really wanted to introduce the little tiger he raised to his family. Moreover, he hadn't seen his parents for a long time. He felt so disappointed. After all, his age was there. No matter how mature he was still a child. Chinemo wasn't someone who would show his emotions. Hence, Grandpa didn't notice anything. Coincidentally, it was the end of the year and something happened at the branch company that he needed to deal with. He hurriedly got into the car and reminded the servants to take good care of his grandson. However, Grandpa didn't understand that Chinemo didn't need to be taken care of. He needed company. Fortunately, with the butler around, he would be able to know his grandson's movements. He heard that his grandson hadn't come down ever since he left. Grandpa anxiously called the Bo family. Little Tiger Bo picked up the phone. "Hello, Grandpa," and Grandpa softened his tone. "It's me, Gio. Grandpa is on a business trip and isn't home today. There's no one at home. After you're done, can you help me visit your brother Mo? I'll go over now." When Little Tiger Bo heard that her little princess was the only one left in the family, she didn't even bother with her mission. She hugged her little keyboard and put on her down jacket. Then she walked over. She had already decided to let Momo have a taste of her cooking. Momo might even agree to let her raise him. That would be great. With that thought in mind, Bojo pushed open the door to the second floor. Chinemo thought it was the butler. He laid on the bed and pulled the blanket up. He covered his face and said calmly, "Get out." Bojo heard those 2 words. There wasn't any warmth in her. She placed the little keyboard down and pounced on the bed. She hugged the bulging figure through the blanket. "Momo, it's me." Chinemo paused. He didn't expect the little tiger to come in. After all, she should still be doing her mission at this time. Also, he could tell that Mr. Bo had been assigning more tasks to her recently. Chapter 1442. Chinemo had just lifted his lids. The little tiger's hand was already pressed on his forehead. Then she frowned heavily. She stopped wagging her tail and ran downstairs. She carried a small medicine box and ran back. She was probably too naughty. Compared to Chinemo, the little tiger always had injuries of various sizes on her body. Of course, there weren't any heavy injuries. Usually it was because she was climbing a wall and got scratched on her face and hands. Sometimes she would have a toothache and a bloated stomach. These were problems that children often encountered. Little Tiger Bo was so familiar with the family's medicine box because every time she was sick or injured, Chinemo would be the one feeding her medicine. At first, Chinemo didn't know what the little tiger was going to do. He felt a little dizzy. He swayed and wanted to stand up to look for her. But when he saw the little tiger carrying the medicine box, his fingers paused. Bojio took the medicine box on the first trip. On the second trip, she carried a big pot of hot water. She lowered her head and poured the cold medicine into Chinmo's mouth seriously. Then, she broke a few pieces of medicine and looked at Chinmo with her dark eyes. She wanted him to eat medicine. This was the first time. He was being taken care of. Chinmo watched as the little tiger ran up and down. In the end, she took a book and flipped a few pages before saying, "Momo, I don't know how to tell bedtime stories. Why don't I make one for you?" Enrich. Chinmo felt that it was rare to see someone not being naughty. She even knew how to tell him a bedtime story. He couldn't help but smile. Seeing this, little Tiger Bo lowered her eyes and kissed him on the cheek. Chinmo didn't guard himself. He didn't know if it was because of the cold or something else, but the back of his ears turned red. When he thought about it, it was a certain little tiger who began to make up a story. The Bo family was familiar with Buddhism and the Bible. These were two different beliefs. But it wasn't hard to tell from the little tiger's words. Hence, she told him a story. A long time ago, there was a person who cultivated the demonic path, and a person who cultivated the righteous path. The person who cultivated the demonic path was treated as an unforgivable sin, and fell into the underworld. Those who cultivated the righteous Tao could ascend to the exalted immortal realm, and become undying and indestructible. However, no one knew that the two of them actually knew each other, and they were on very good terms. They met when they were 8 years old, under the Kunlun ice mountain, and worshipped the same celestial master. It was just that the one who cultivated the demonic path was naughty and mischievous, and always wanted to cause trouble. All the immortal herbs he obtained were given to the one who cultivated the celestial path. This was because the cultivation of the celestial path required one to expend vital energy, and to comprehend great enlightenment. Only then would one be able to love all living things. Originally, the two of them were equally talented, but one day, the child who cultivated the demonic path committed a great taboo. In order to save his senior martial brother who cultivated the celestial path, he committed the sin of killing, and was imprisoned in the Kunlun mountain range for 3 years. At that time, his senior apprentice brother went to accompany him every day in exchange for bringing him immortal herbs. However, he was rejected. That person who cultivated the demonic path had said, "I can't do nothing when I see you in harm's way. I can't love all living beings." It was probably because of this one sentence that he said that destroyed all possibilities of him becoming an immortal. Ever since then, he fell to the ground and became a demon. He walked through the human world, experienced the joys and sorrows of partings and reunions, saw all the streets and alleys, and slept in the tea house as a dissolute young master. He only remembered the person who disciplined him the moment they met at the foot of the Kunlun mountain. However, the two of them could no longer meet, or wherever he was, he would try his best not to appear. However, many people did not understand that those who cultivated the demonic path were not necessarily bad, and those who cultivated the celestial path were not necessarily good. When many people did something wrong, not only did they not dare to admit it, they would also push the blame. This was human nature. There was never a distinction between the demonic path and the celestial path, because the person who cultivated the demonic path was very flamboyant, and even had many secrets about some people. The more guilty a person was, the more they would want to bite the other person first. They would never remember what they had done, and would only talk about how the person who cultivated the demonic path was like. First, they would smear their reputation, and then they would set a trap. They received news that the person who cultivated the demonic path would go through a tribulation every 10 years. So they used this opportunity to attract 10,000 bolts of lightning. Ever since the demon saint was destroyed, everyone thought that his soul would be completely gone. Unexpectedly, he actually fell into the yellow springs, leaving behind a wisp of his soul. They said that the person who destroyed him was not these people who cultivated the righteous path, but because he refused to obey the heavenly mandate. However, on this day, there was also a person who refused to obey the heavenly mandate. He used his immortal bones, flesh, and blood in exchange for a change of fate. The change was not his but someone else, the person who should have ended here. Buddha asked him if he would regret turning from an immortal into a being that didn't know what was good or bad. He replied that he didn't regret it. The person he missed the most was when he had met him when he was 8 years old. Now his luck was full, and he could take all of it. Buddha shook his head. This was a high immortal, the person with the most spiritual energy. How could he end up like this? He didn't agree, and only said that this was the heavenly mandate. He laughed, and the white sword in his hand turned into a sword shadow. With blood as a guide, he cleared out hell, and caused the 3 realms to shake. That night, there were no ghosts on the 800-mile road to the Yellow Springs. There were only dazzling and blooming mandalas. The road that was built seemed to be calling someone home. When Guanyin saw this, she shed a tear. The bell of Lane Temple rose and fell, and Buddha only chanted Amitabha. With that, little Tiger Bo tilted her head, looking as though she was waiting for a compliment. Momo, is this story good? You should continue making it up. Chinemo glanced sideways at her. Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail. Let me think about it. I'll tell you tomorrow. Be good and sleep first. That way, you will get better. Chinemo looked at the little face that was very close to him. He pinched it with his fingers. Silly, don't worry. Huh? Little Tiger Bo blinked in confusion. Chinmo's drug took effect. When the little person was about to close her eyes, her voice floated over. Even if we are different after we grow up, I won't let anyone hurt you. Little Tiger Bo heard this sentence. Her pair of tiger eyes lit up slightly. In reality, little Tiger Bo more or less understood that ordinary people wouldn't be able to accept what she was going to do in the future. She had watched so many cartoons and movies. They all said that people from different worlds would never be together. She had asked Grandpa before. The little princess's family was a policeman. No, that wasn't right. It should be the kind that was more powerful than the police. Anyway, they were specially here to catch her. She didn't want the person who came to catch her to be Momo. She didn't want Momo to hate her after knowing what she did for a living. Hence, even the story she made up revealed a kind of desire. What made her happy was what he said. Chapter 1443. When the two of them were together, time would always pass especially quickly. Little Tiger Bo leaned against Chinmo's head to sleep. When she woke up, it was already late at night. Only then did she remember that people who were sick had to eat more. There was no one at home, so little Tiger Bo volunteered to cook a bowl of noodles. She didn't know if it was because the color was too heavy or because of the seasoning. After Chinemo ate it, he didn't recover. He even got enteritis. Later, the doctor explained the reason. When he had a cold, his digestive system was weak. Moreover, the seasoning of the instant noodles was too greasy. It wasn't strange for this to happen. Little Tiger Bo felt very guilty. She climbed the wall at night and asked Chinemo to forgive her. At that time, Chinemo didn't have any strength at all. He simply said, "Come up." When the little tiger climbed up, he reached out and hugged her. She was soft and fluffy, causing his lips to lift subconsciously. "Little Bojio, are you an idiot?" "No," Little Tiger Bo said seriously. Little Tiger Bo said seriously, "But Momo, this is the first time you took the initiative to hug me. Should I celebrate? Do you want me to sell you?" Chinemo glanced at her. "I'm very expensive. I will work hard to earn money." Little Tiger Bo clenched her small fists. Chinemo held her fists. "When you are 18, I will tell you if I will sell you or not." 18. Little Tiger Bo counted with her fingers. There was still a long time. "Can't you agree now?" Chinemo raised his eyebrows. "No. All right, 18. I will definitely be taller by then. I will be like my mother and wear a suit to look for you." The more Bojio spoke, the more comfortable she felt. Chinemo frowned. "Suit? Shouldn't you wear a skirt?" "No, the overbearing CEOs in the movies all wear suits." Little Tiger Bo yawned as she spoke. Her small head rested on Chinmo's shoulder like a real little tiger. She wagged her tail twice. "Momo, I'm sleepy." She was asking Chinemo to coax her. Some habits were probably formed through nurturing. Before she knew Chinemo, Bojio would never let anyone coax her to sleep. But now that she was listless, she would lean her little head on Chinmo's shoulder. Chinemo would pat her back from time to time, and say something in a cold and pleasant voice. It was nothing more than asking her to sleep. There were only a few days left before the spring festival. No matter what, old Master and had to make a trip back to China, and so did Qin Mo. When little Tiger Bo heard this news, she went into Qin Mo's little panda luggage. Momo, I'll be your checked luggage. Bring me along. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of bringing a certain little tiger along with him. Qin Mo went to ask, but the lazy Mr. Bo didn't agree. He smiled faintly and said, no. It was also that day that Qin Mo smelled the scent of blood on this adult. Even though he was wearing a trench coat, the scent was faintly discernible. But before Auntie Bo came back, he entered the bathroom. Qin Mo was a child who could keep things in his heart. That was probably what people with high IQ were like. He left a medicine box at the Bo family's house and didn't say anything. But Qin Mo didn't feel good about not being able to bring his little tiger along. Especially when he was about to get into the car, he saw a certain someone's round tiger eyes. When I'm not around, listen to Uncle Bo, don't climb the wall all the time. You can't eat too much of the candy I give you. If you're hungry, use the key I gave you to enter the house. I've stuffed the snacks in the cupboard full. There are ready-made canned beef. Eat less instant noodles. You have my house number. Call me if you need anything. Don't be mischievous. Qin Mo couldn't help but pinch her face. I'll be back soon. Little Tiger Bo hugged her little keyboard and nodded. She counted the time in her heart. 3 days wasn't too long. It was within his acceptable range. Even so, when the bus was about to leave, little Tiger Bo didn't let go of Qin Mo's sleeve. But what stunned Grandpa and wasn't little Tiger Bo's actions. It was because his grandson obviously didn't want to leave. This was a completely different attitude from when he first arrived at this place. The most surprising thing was, when the car started to move, his grandson started to be absent-minded. From boarding the plane to taking off and landing, his grandson's face did not show any trace of a smile again. It wasn't until he picked up his phone and made an overseas call that his face warmed up a little. At that time, WeChat didn't exist. It wasn't as convenient as it was now. He had to use a computer to make a video call. But it was nearing the new year. Even children were busy. Moreover, there was a time difference between the two of them. The moment Qin Mo returned to the military courtyard, he was surrounded by children. He didn't have time to make a call. When he finished visiting his relatives and picked up his phone, he realized that the time wasn't right. Most importantly, he had originally planned to return after New Year's Eve, because Madam An suddenly had an important matter to deal with. Therefore, the deadline to return was lengthened. Fortunately, Qin Mo was free. He could coordinate with a certain little tiger's time to make a call. But no one picked up the call. Bo Jio wasn't at home. Instead, she followed Mr. Bo to the university. This time she wasn't acting cute. Although it looked like it. Bo Jio was still wearing her little old axe pajamas. But this wasn't Mr. Bo's motive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought his daughter to school at such a time. Something happened in the hacker world. This wasn't the first time. It had never been peaceful. This was the life he chose. But in terms of privacy, there had never been such a big oversight like this time. Some people would know him sooner or later. In the past, Mr. Bo wasn't worried about these things. But it was different now. The one lying under his desk and the woman in the opposite building were his lifeline. They were all his lifeline. Although he had already sent out a call, and was waiting for the butler to come. But this also meant that Jill wouldn't have a choice anymore. Mr. Bo looked up and glanced at the English words on the blackboard. He supported his chin with one hand and asked casually, "Joe, do you like what we are doing now?" Little Tiger Bo leaned against the corner of the desk. She didn't say anything. Instead, she used the small keyboard to type 3 words over. Mr. Bo tilted his head. His gaze deepened. That's good. The most important thing now was to hide Jill well. As for him, he would distract the attention of those people. He couldn't really let them find anything. He had to think carefully about moving back to the castle. Chapter 1444. The university was undoubtedly the safest place. Mr. Bo's current identity wouldn't make anyone suspicious, especially when he and the little tiger sat on the stairs and waited for Mrs. Bo to pick them up, one big and one small, both holding a bag of yogurt in their mouths. The little tiger wagged her tail. "Dad, I want to eat chicken wings." "Lord Gio, you have to change your habit of eating right after waking up." Mr. Bo yawned and said lazily, "Roll around later and my wife will bring you to eat." The little tiger felt that she should educate a certain adult. "Dad, I'm already 5 years old, not 1. If I roll around and act cute, it's too shameless. What do you think I should do?" Mr. Bo's voice was indifferent. "Mrs. Bo said that she doesn't want you to eat junk food." The little tiger thought about it seriously. "Then I'll roll around. Roll a few more times. I want to eat too." Mr. Bo smiled. He reached out and pulled his collar. There was a different kind of mischievous look on his face. The little tiger nodded her head and gave him an okay gesture. One big and one small, they maintained their previous sitting posture. The two faces were very eye-catching. Many university students looked over. They were extremely cute. Mr. Bo was quite famous in the university. This wasn't the first time he brought Bojio to wait for Mrs. Bo. But every time, the foreigners would feel a strong impact. They wanted to give birth to a Xiao Naofu too. Mrs. Bo was wearing a professional suit and high heels. The moment she walked into the university, she saw this scene. The two of them were drinking yogurt again. Was the food in the university so bad? Mrs. Bo couldn't help but smile. She walked over. Little Tiger Bo was the first to see Mrs. Bo. Her round tiger eyes lit up instantly. She pounced towards Mrs. Bo. "Mom, are you good today?" Mrs. Bo looked at her attire and rolled up her daughter's sleeves. Little Tiger Bo reported seriously, "I'm very good. Dad has been sleeping." "Hey." Mr. Bo smiled lazily. He freed one hand and knocked the book on Little Tiger Bo's head. Then he leaned forward and placed his head on Mrs. Bo's shoulder. "I didn't sleep on purpose. I wrote too many documents and felt dizzy." It was rare to see Mrs. Bo with such an aura. When she appeared, many people looked in her direction. Successful people and students who were still in school had different auras to begin with. The more it was like this, the easier it was to prove that the extremely handsome PhD student was actually a sugar daddy of some female entrepreneur. Many hot girls and new students felt that it was a pity. He really couldn't understand why he had to find someone older than him. Of course, the man's appearance was impeccable. He looked no different from them in terms of age. Due to the nurturing of her temperament, she gave off the feeling of an iceberg beauty for no reason, but it was different from that. Because when she was wearing a professional suit, the feeling of a superior was not only that of a beauty, but also an indescribable sense of coldness and abstinence. "Why are you feeling dizzy all of a sudden?" As Mrs. Bo spoke, she stretched out her hand and rubbed a certain adult's head. Little Tiger Bo completely understood her father's tricks. When it came to fighting for favor with her, her father always spared no effort. Anyway, he wasn't too afraid that people in school would say that he was a sugar daddy. From a certain point of view, Mr. Bo was indeed like a little puppy. However, when the people beside him saw his actions just now, they all asked themselves if this was the evil senior they knew. They didn't feel like it. Mr. Bo didn't care about other people's opinions. Recently, Mrs. Bo had been too cold to him. He had to find some sense of existence. Little Tiger Bo didn't forget what happened just now. She wagged her tail and blinked her tiger eyes slightly. "Dad said that he wanted to eat chicken wings just now. His dizziness should be because he is hungry." Mr. Bo glanced over and raised his eyebrows. His Lord Joe and that fellow from the Chin family were so good that they knew how to use others as a shield. Chicken wings. Mrs. Bo seemed to be helpless between the two of them. She sighed slightly. "Just one meal. After that, I will go to the airport. Both of you eat some vegetables tonight. You can't eat meat all the time." Mr. Bo hugged her waist and planted a kiss on her lips. "Don't worry, I will take good care of Lord Gio." Mrs. Bo didn't expect such a sudden action from him. The people around them were looking at them. Was he no longer resisting letting others know what their relationship was? Or was he too young and always did things according to his mood? Mrs. Bo could more or less understand this from him. She tried not to talk about their relationship in public. It wasn't because he said anything, but she could feel it. After all, he didn't even introduce his tutor and some people he knew from school. Mrs. Bo understood him on this point. It was probably strange. They had been married for so many years. She would still care about such things occasionally. It was fine this time. The last time she came to pick him up alone, she saw a girl asking him out. He rejected her. That girl said, "You can't always live off a woman like this." Mrs. Bo knew about a man's pride, so she chose not to appear. But when she thought about it carefully, the situation at home, he got his degree by himself. The clothes he was wearing were indeed bought by her, but he didn't show any signs of liking or disliking them. Even his tomahawk was his own. He shouldn't have any negative feelings in this aspect. But the people around her said that she was born strong. Big boys like him usually liked cute and lively girls or little fairies. They liked to attach themselves to people and were romantic and innocent. Mrs. Bo didn't ask him about this aspect. After all, when this person looked at her, he was really clingy. She always forgot that they weren't suitable for each other. At the start, little Tiger Bo was still in Mrs. Bo's arms. Unknowingly, Mr. Bo carried her over and placed her on his neck. Little Tiger Bo grabbed her father's unruly hair and wagged her tail behind her. She didn't want to act cute. But when they saw such a handsome man with a little tiger on his head, people would look at him. Boss Lou. Mrs. Bo's surname was Lou. She followed chauffeur all year round. This time, when she saw her boss come out, she walked over and was about to open the car door. But Mrs. Bo stopped him. "We will eat nearby. Old Juan, you should go and eat something too." "Okay, Boss Lou." With that, Old Juan glanced in Mr. Bo's direction and greeted him respectfully. "Sir." Although he didn't understand why Boss Lou chose such a person, since Boss Lou had agreed to it, as a driver he wouldn't say much. Miss Gio was as lovable as ever. Old Juan smiled as he looked at the little tiger. This was probably the most unusual and happiest family he had ever met. However, Boss Lou was usually too busy. As for Mr. Bo, there was something that was hard to explain. He liked to stick to Boss Lou too much. But he wasn't like an ordinary gigolo. He couldn't explain it. He just hoped that Mr. Bo wouldn't let Boss Lou down. It was always a happy thing to have chicken wings. There were cola, fries, and hamburgers on the table. Mrs. Bo was rolling up her daughter's sleeves. When she looked up, there was a hamburger in front of her. After seeing her take a bite, the person smiled. This smile didn't matter. The people eating here were all university students. Many of them looked straight at him. However, in the next second, he didn't know what happened. The person's fingers paused for a moment. He raised his gaze slightly and looked out of the window. The color of his eyes darkened. The sound of the police car rushing past rang in her ears. This wasn't the most important thing. Instead, it was a few people dressed in black under the tree. They seemed to be asking something. "What's wrong?" Mrs. Bo followed his gaze but didn't see anything. Mr. Bo took a bite of the hamburger. "Nothing. I have classes in the afternoon. I probably can't send you off." Mrs. Bo paused. Then she smiled and said, "I know. Eat more." He probably had some concerns. This time, there were more people who saw them. The meal was finished very quickly. When Mrs. Bo was around, Mr. Bo was still lazy. He waited until she left. After she left, he made a call. "Come over and bring Joe back." "Yes, boss." On the other end of the line was a very magnetic British voice. Little Tiger Bo had heard it before, but this time, it was a little different. It seemed a little deep. After around 5 minutes, a black Lamborghini appeared in front of the school gate. A black Lamborghini appeared in front of the school gate. A man got out of the car with something that looked like a suitcase in his hand. But a normal suitcase wouldn't be carried by hand. In addition, the person was wearing a black tuxedo and white gloves. He looked like a noble deacon in the movies. Even though he was already middle-aged, it was rare for a middle-aged person to wear a formal suit so handsomely. But this person was able to express his mature gentlemanly aura to the fullest. That wasn't all. He was also carrying a small cake box. When he saw Bogio, he placed his right hand behind his back and smiled lightly. "Young lord, I finally see you." At that time, the word young lord was a little unfamiliar to Bojio. But even now, she was very clear about what she wanted to do in the future. He blinked his tiger eyes and looked at the person in front of him. The old butler was so cute that his heart almost melted. This was completely different from his master. His young lord was a little tiger, a very, very cute little tiger. His master was completely different. The dark aura was thicker. It had been like this since he was young. Mr. Bo allowed the two of them to interact. He took the suitcase from the butler's hands. He opened it in the car. At this time, there weren't many people in front of the university. The mystery of the suitcase was that you wouldn't be able to guess that it would open so many layers. Other than a black trench coat, there was also a small notebook and some weapons inside. Mr. Bo changed into the trench coat first. Then he lifted the suitcase. He wore his glasses and looked very gentle. He didn't look like he was going to do anything. But if people knew what he was taking, they would know what he was going to do next. He was going to get rid of a few bugs. As for little Tiger Bo, she was naturally brought back by the butler. According to Mr. Bo's instructions, it was most reliable to send her to the William family. That was because that family was born to be dramatic. They were so careless that they wouldn't think about what happened. On the other hand, the butler was very polite. He bowed towards little William and said, "Young lord, I'll have to trouble you for a day." Little William's eyes widened. After all, he had only seen such a person in the movies his father filmed. Little Tiger Bo didn't need to trouble others. But similarly, she knew that her father had something to do. Little Tiger Bo was a thoughtful person. When she smelled the different atmosphere this time, she climbed up to the window several times to take a look. It wasn't until much later that his father finally showed up. Mr. Bo was here to bring little Tiger Bo home. In reality, other than that kid from the Chin family, he didn't feel at ease leaving Gio in the hands of anyone else for a day. It wasn't that the others weren't good. To be honest, the others weren't smart enough. For example, right now little William couldn't tell that Mr. Bo's hand was injured no matter how hard he looked. After all, he was still the same as before. His tie wasn't tied properly and was half slanted to the side. It was obvious that he was living off a woman. Only her lips were a little pale. Only little Tiger Bo could tell that something was wrong with her father. She didn't let him hug her. Instead, she held his hand and walked home. When they were halfway there, Mr. Bo leaned against the tree trunk. His breathing was unstable. Jiu-Yu. Little Tiger Bo was still very capable. Even a child would feel uncomfortable seeing such a scene. But he didn't panic at all. He took out his phone from his father's pocket and called Grandpa Butler. From making the call to hanging up the phone and waiting for the butler to arrive, the entire process was completely unlike that of a 5-year-old child. However, her little hands were trembling a little, and the tiger did not even lift its head. After Grandpa Butler rushed over, he started to treat his master's injuries. The hand injury was easy to deal with, but the bullet in his shoulder had to be taken out. This was how his master was able to walk all the way and still take the time to call his madam. He smiled gently. "Lord Gio? She is downstairs, playing with her little keyboard. Don't worry, I will take good care of her." After hanging up the phone, his breath leaked out. The temperature was a little high. Grandpa Butler prescribed a lot of medicine. After treating the wound, he said, "It's all thanks to young lord's timely call." Mr. Bo leaned against the wall. One of his shoulders was wrapped in bandages. His long and narrow eyes were tilted upwards. He had the aura of a king that he didn't have in front of others. That's why I said that she is very suitable to take over my position, both technically and psychologically. Words to the readers. This book is participating in the QQ reading event. As long as the readers have tipped, they can participate in the lucky draw. There are many prizes. Everyone, please leave more comments and participate. I wish everyone a big prize. The prizes are as follows. 1. Reading points/book coins. 2. Author discount coupon/book discount coupon. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.